The abyss stinks of rot and monster guts, and Kang Seo-jin is down at the bottom of the food chain. He's a carrier, which means his whole job is looting corpses while the real hunters fight. No awakened powers, no combat skills, just a pair of gloves and an order to keep his head down. The hunters ahead of him are B ranks, laughing and cutting through low-tier monsters like it's a game. Seo-jin is 19 years old, and he's been doing this for 2 years, ever since his parents died in a gate collapse. Nobody looks at him twice. Nobody asks his name. He's just the trash boy with the haul bag, dragging loot back to the surface. The lead hunter, a guy named Jeon Min-kyu, glances back and sneers. He tells Seo-jin to move faster, or he'll leave him down here with the corpses. Our boy just nods and keeps his head low. He knows better than to talk back to a B rank with a short temper. The gate they're in is a C rank fissure, a cave system crawling with fanged serpents and toxic spores. Low risk, low reward. The kind of job carriers fight over, because it pays just enough to eat. Seo-jin drags a dead serpent to the cart and starts stripping its scales. The stench hits his throat like acid, but he doesn't flinch. He's learned to breathe through his mouth and ignore the burn. Another hunter yells at him to hurry up, says the cart's only half full, and they're pushing deeper. Seo-jin tightens the straps and follows, boots squelching on wet stone. The tunnel narrows and the air gets heavy. Something shifts in the dark ahead, and the lead hunter stops walking. Min-kyu draws his sword, suddenly tense, and the whole party freezes. The ceiling cracks. A shriek splits the silence, and the tunnel walls explode inward. What bursts out isn't a C-rank serpent. It's a hulking insectoid thing with too many legs and a carapace oozing black smoke. An A-rank abomination, way above the gate's registered classification. Min-kyu shouts for a formation, but the thing is already among them. It skewers one hunter through the chest before the order even finishes. Blood sprays across the stone. 2 more hunters try to flank it, firing off mana blasts that barely chip its shell. The creature whips around, and its tail slams a third man into the wall hard enough to crater the rock. Seo-jin drops behind the cart, heart hammering, every instinct screaming at him to run. Min-kyu is still shouting, his sword glowing with some kind of fire skill, but the monster isn't slowing down. It grabs him by the leg and hurls him across the tunnel like he's nothing. Then it turns towards Seo-jin. Our boy scrambles backward, hands scraping over loose stone and junk, finding nothing but trash. Broken gear, shattered vials, a bent iron rod, a cheap lighter, a torn leather strap. The creature lunges. He doesn't think. He just grabs whatever's in reach and clenches his fists. Something inside him snaps awake. A heat in his chest he's never felt before, and the garbage in his hands starts to glow. Junk warps and twists together like it's alive. Metal, leather, glass shards, all fusing in a flash of white light that blinds him for a heartbeat. When the light dies, he's holding a dagger. It's sleek and curved and humming with a faint blue edge, etched with patterns that shift like water. No idea where it came from. No time to figure it out. The monster stabs down with 2 bladed forelimbs, and Seo-jin throws himself sideways, rolling to his feet with the dagger up. His body moves on pure panic. He slashes at the nearest leg joint, and the blade goes through that thick chitin like wet paper. The creature shrieks and rears back. He doesn't hesitate. He lunges forward, ducks under a wild swipe, and drives the dagger straight up into the soft flesh beneath its jaw. The blade sinks to the hilt. The monster convulses once, twice, then collapses in a heap of twitching limbs and black blood. Then the dagger crumbles in his hand, breaking apart into gray dust that slips through his fingers. He stands alone in the silent tunnel, gasping, covered in monster guts with a dead party around him. He's the only survivor. Seo-jin stares at the dust on his palm. He doesn't understand what just happened, but he knows one thing. That weapon came from the trash, and it was his. He staggers back to the entrance, dragging the cart of salvage behind him because he has to bring something back or he won't get paid. The gate spits him out into the carrier camp outside Seoul's outer district, a muddy yard of tents and sorting tables. The other carriers see him emerge alone, and the whispers start immediately. A big guy named Park, built like a fridge, blocks his path and wants to know where the hunters are. Seo-jin says they're dead, ambushed by an A rank. Park doesn't believe him. He shoves our boy hard, says he probably ran like a coward and left everyone to die. The other carriers crowd around, laughing and throwing insults. One of them kicks over his salvage cart, and the loot spills into the mud. Seo-jin just stands there, head still buzzing from the fight, the dagger's ghost still warm in his grip. He doesn't fight back. He can't, not without revealing something has changed, and he doesn't even know what that something is yet. He picks up his haul, one piece at a time, while the laughter rings in his ears. Later that night, he sits behind the supply tent where nobody goes, staring at a rusted gear he found in the scrap pile. He focuses, trying to find that heat again. It takes an hour of frustration and a splitting headache before it clicks. The gear warps, stretches, and reforms into a simple folding knife with a sharp edge and a comfortable grip. It's not legendary. It's not glowing, but it's real, and it's his, and it came from literal trash. He almost laughs. He checks his body for side effects and finds nothing except a deep, aching exhaustion, like he just ran 10 miles. So the power takes stamina. Good to know. He pockets the knife and heads back to his cot. 2 days later, he's assigned to trash sorting duty, which is the worst job in the camp. He spends hours picking through junk hauled out of cleared gates, separating anything that can be sold from actual garbage. Most of it is broken weapons, shattered armor, and monster parts too damaged to process. He's halfway through a pile of rusted chainmail when his fingers touch something cold. Not temperature cold, dead cold, like a void sucking the warmth out of the air. He pulls it out of the pile and finds a jagged metallic fragment, about the size of his palm, deep black with a faint purple shimmer. It hums, not audibly, but he can feel it in his teeth, a vibration that sets his nerves on edge. He glances around. Nobody's watching. He shoves the fragment into his boot and buries it under a layer of sock. He doesn't know what it is, but that cold pulse tells him it's not ordinary trash. And ordinary trash just became his whole future. He finishes his shift with a blank face and a racing heart, that metal lump burning against his ankle like a secret. Every time he shifts his weight, he feels it. When night falls, he pulls the fragment out under his blanket and just stares at it. Purple shimmer moves across the surface in slow spirals, lazy and hypnotic. He presses it against the rusted gear he hasn't reforged yet, just to see what happens. The fragment pulses once, and the gear glows faintly along its edges before going dark. His exhaustion hits him like a hammer, and he almost passes out on the spot. Too much. Whatever this material is, it amplifies his power but drains him way faster. He hides it inside his thin mattress and lies back, staring at the tent ceiling. That's when a shadow falls across the canvas. Someone is standing outside his tent. Seo-jin holds his breath, one hand sliding toward the folding knife he made earlier. The shadow doesn't move. Then it speaks, low and raspy, an old man's voice. Yoon Tae-hyung wants to know what he found in the sorting yard today. He says he watched Seo-jin hide something in his boot. He's been watching him since the gate collapse, and he has questions. The shadow outside his tent doesn't move for a long 5 count. Seo-jin's fingers close around the folding knife under his blanket. Then the voice speaks again, low and raspy, asking if he's going to invite an old man in or just sit there gripping that blade. Our boy freezes. The old man knows he's armed. That's not a guess, that's observation. And that changes everything about this conversation. Seo-jin pulls the tent flap aside, and Yoon Tae-hyung steps in. A wiry man in his 60s with a scar that runs from temple to jaw. He's wearing a carrier's cast-offs, but he doesn't move like a carrier. He moves like someone who's killed things bigger than people. Yoon sits on a crate, folds his arms, and says he's not here to hurt anyone. He's here because a carrier walked out of a gate alone after an A rank wiped an entire party. And that same carrier has been poking at trash behind the supply tent like he's trying to start a fire with 2 sticks and a prayer. Seo-jin asks what he wants. Yoon says he wants to see it. No games, no threats, just show him what he made. Our boy hesitates for a heartbeat. Then he pulls out the folding knife and sets it on the crate between them. Yoon picks it up, turns it over, runs his thumb along the edge. He whistles low, asks if this came from the gate. Seo-jin nods, says it was a rusted gear before. He doesn't know how it works, only that he can feel it when he tries. Yoon sets the knife down and stares at Seo-jin for a long moment. Then he says he's only met one other person in his life who could do something like this. That person died 10 years ago inside a gate collapse, hunted by men who wanted the power for themselves. Seo-jin's chest tightens, but he doesn't ask the question that wants to burst out of him. He just listens. Yoon says the power isn't a curse, but it's not a blessing either. If the wrong people find out, Seo-jin won't live long enough to regret it. Seo-jin asks who the wrong people are. Yoon says any guild that would chain a crafter to a workbench and drain him dry. He names 3 of them, and Black Sun is at the top of the list. Seo-jin absorbs that, then asks why Yoon cares what happens to some random carrier. Yoon leans forward, hands on his knees, and says he used to be a hunter. B rank, back when that meant something. He lost his team to a high-rank gate 15 years ago, and survived because a carrier dragged him out of the collapse. That carrier didn't owe him anything. Just saw a body and pulled. Yoon says he's been watching carriers ever since, looking for the ones worth protecting. Seo-jin asks if that means Yoon is offering to train him. Yoon grins, and it's not a warm grin. He says he's offering to teach Seo-jin how to not die in the next 48 hours. Because the hunters are already buzzing about the carrier who came back alone, and they will come looking. Next morning, Seo-jin gets assigned to a low-risk D-rank gate with a 6-man hunting party and 3 other carriers. Yoon slips him a canteen of water and tells him to keep his head down and his eyes open. The hunters are led by a woman named Sergeant Han, hard-faced and efficient, who barks orders without wasting a syllable. The gate spits them into a ruined temple overgrown with glowing moss, the air thick with the smell of wet stone and old rot. In the first hour, they clear 3 rooms, nothing worse than a few ankle-biter creatures the hunters dispatch with contemptuous ease. Then the floor gives way under one of the carriers, a skinny kid named Dong-soo, and he drops screaming into a subchamber packed with sleeping broodlings. The things wake up fast, hissing, skittering, a wave of claws and teeth boiling up out of the hole. Sergeant Han shouts for the hunters to form a line, but the broodlings are already swarming between them, cutting Dong-soo off from the rest. Seo-jin doesn't think. He jumps into the hole, lands hard on his shoulder, and rolls to his feet just as the first broodling lunges at Dong-soo's throat. Folding knife is already in his hand. He buries it in the thing's skull, twists, kicks the corpse off, and drags Dong-soo backward toward a crack in the wall, where the creatures can only come at them one at a time. The hunters are raining spells and arrows down from above, but most of the broodlings are pouring into the subchamber now. Seo-jin guts the next one, then the next, his arm a blur of motion he didn't know he had. His stamina drains with every strike, a creeping heaviness in his limbs. Dong-soo is screaming. Seo-jin is bleeding from a gash across his ribs, and there are still at least a dozen of the things left. He spots a shattered stone tablet on the ground, chunks of it glowing with residual magic. He grabs 2 pieces, focuses, feels that heat surge through his chest, and the stone warps in his grip. It folds into a short spear with a jagged, crystalline tip that pulses with a faint green light. The spear throws straight and true, punching through 3 broodlings in a row before lodging in the far wall. The hunters finish off the rest. Sergeant Han pulls Seo-jin and Dong-soo out of the hole and stares at him for a hard second. She asks where he got that spear. Seo-jin points at the rubble and says it was already there. He just picked it up. She doesn't believe him, but she also doesn't push it, because carriers aren't her problem. Dong-soo grabs Seo-jin's arm and won't let go for the rest of the extraction. He keeps saying Seo-jin saved his life, that he owes him everything. Our boy just nods, exhausted, hoping nobody noticed the spear crumble into dust the moment Sergeant Han turned her back. Back at camp, Yoon is waiting by the supply tent. He takes one look at Seo-jin's face, at the blood on his shirt, and pulls him aside without a word. Behind the tent, Yoon pulls out a battered leather pouch and dumps its contents onto a flat stone. Scraps of old leather, a broken buckle, some thread so frayed it's practically dust. He tells Seo-jin to make something useful out of this garbage. Not a weapon. Not something flashy that'll draw eyes. Something a carrier actually needs. Something he can wear every day without raising suspicion. Seo-jin sits cross-legged and stares at the pile. His body is already heavy from the fight, but Yoon isn't asking. He's teaching. He picks up the leather scraps and focuses. The heat comes slower this time. A reluctant trickle rather than a flood. The leather knits itself together under his hands, threads weaving, buckle reshaping. The whole mess shrinking and firming into a compact belt pouch with reinforced stitching and a flap that seals tight. When it's done, his vision swims and he has to brace his hands on his knees to stay upright. Yoon picks up the pouch, turns it over, and nods once. He says this is how Seo-jin stays alive. Every crafter needs a shell, a surface identity that gives them an excuse to handle materials without blowing their cover. Seo-jin can be a repairman, a salvager, a guy who's good with his hands. Nobody questions a carrier who fixes things for coin. Seo-jin asks how Yoon knows all this. Yoon's face tightens. Then he says the crafter he knew before, the one who died, she started the same way, from trash to tools, from tools to weapons, from weapons to something the big guilds wanted so badly they were willing to kill for it. Seo-jin asks what happened to her. Yoon says Hwang Jin-ho happened. Seo-jin files that name away like a bullet he'll chamber later. That afternoon, a hunter from another unit comes sniffing around the carrier camp. Jeon Min-kyu, a B rank with a sneer permanently stapled to his face, moves through the sorting tables like he owns them. He's asking questions about the gate incident, about the carrier who walked out alive. The other carriers point at Seo-jin, because of course they do. Jeon Min-kyu stops in front of our boy and looks him up and down like he's checking a piece of meat for rot. He asks how a skinny nobody survived an A-rank ambush when trained hunters got torn apart. Seo-jin keeps his voice flat and says he ran. He got lucky. The monster was already wounded when he found it. Jeon Min-kyu doesn't buy it. He leans in close and says, "Carriers don't get lucky. Carriers get carried out in bags." He asks what Seo-jin is hiding. Seo-jin meets his eyes and says he's not hiding anything. He's just a guy who hauls trash. Jeon Min-kyu grins, but there's no warmth in it, just teeth. He says he'll be watching, and if Seo-jin so much as breathes wrong, he'll find out what's really under the hood. He walks off, and Seo-jin exhales for what feels like the first time in a minute. At night, Yoon pulls him into the shadows behind the latrine and says Jeon Min-kyu is exactly the kind of predator they talked about. Not the strongest, not the smartest, but hungry and connected, and willing to sell anything for a promotion. If Jeon Min-kyu even suspects the truth, Seo-jin's life is over. Seo-jin asks what he's supposed to do. Just keep hiding forever. Yoon says no, he needs to get stronger faster. And the only way to do that is to push his power harder. But not here. Not in the open, where every pair of eyes is a potential knife in his back. Seo-jin asks where then. Yoon says the Twilight Guild is recruiting carriers for a dangerous gate run, and nobody else is dumb enough to volunteer. The gate is a B rank, the kind that makes experienced hunters nervous. The Twilight Guild pays triple rates and needs men willing to haul salvage under fire. It's a risk that could get him killed, but it's also an opportunity. Inside a high-risk gate, nobody pays attention to how a carrier survives. Everyone's too busy trying not to die. Seo-jin doesn't hesitate. He says he'll do it. Yoon nods like he expected that answer, then hands him a small token. A chipped piece of obsidian with the Twilight sigil scratched into it. He tells Seo-jin to present this at the guild tent at dawn, where a woman named Baek Ji-woo will be watching the volunteers closely. She's sharp, she's fair, and if Seo-jin proves himself, she might become an ally. But she's also A-rank, and A-rank hunters don't miss much. Seo-jin pockets the token and spends the next 3 hours in his tent, staring at the black fragment he hid in his mattress. The purple shimmer spirals slow and lazy across its surface, and Seo-jin can feel it calling to something deep in his chest. He doesn't know what this fragment is, but he knows it's more than just fuel. Yoon didn't ask about it, which means either he doesn't know Seo-jin has it, or he knows exactly what it is and chose not to speak. Either way, Seo-jin needs answers, and the only place to find them is inside gates that scare everyone else away. He tucks the fragment into the belt pouch he made and straps it tight against his hip. Dawn breaks gray and cold over the camp. Seo-jin walks to the Twilight Guild tent, a massive pavilion of reinforced canvas with armed guards at every entrance. The token gets him past the outer perimeter, where a crew of volunteers are already lined up, carriers and hunters both, all of them looking nervous in the pale morning light. At the front of the line stands Baek Ji-woo, tall and sharp-eyed, her long coat trimmed with monster fur and her sword hilt worn smooth from use. She looks at each volunteer like she's measuring their worth in seconds. When Seo-jin steps forward and hands her the token, she studies it, then studies him. She asks why a carrier would volunteer for a B-rank gate, knowing the casualty rate. Seo-jin says he needs the money. Baek Ji-woo's eyes narrow, and she says that's what they all say until they're bleeding out in the dark. He doesn't flinch. She stares at him for 3 long heartbeats, then hands the token back and says he's accepted. The gate activates 30 minutes later, a swirling mouth of green light that hums like a live wire. Seo-jin steps through with 18 others, a mix of Twilight hunters and desperate carriers, and the world on the other side swallows them whole. The gate spits them into a drowned city, skyscrapers half submerged in black water, the sky a permanent bruised purple. Something massive moves beneath the surface, and the lead hunter, a scarred veteran named Captain Ryu, orders everyone to stay quiet and stay close. The salvage is supposed to be easy. Find the old armory in the central tower. Haul the weapons out. Don't engage unless forced. They're 10 minutes into the flooded streets when the water explodes upward and a thrashing tentacle wraps around Captain Ryu's leg and drags him under before he can scream. The hunters panic. The carriers bolt in 3 different directions. Seo-jin runs too, but he runs toward the central tower, because getting the salvage is the only way this doesn't end with everyone dead and broke. He's halfway up the tower stairs when he hears a roar behind him. One of the Twilight hunters, a young woman with a shattered arm, is pinned against a wall while a second tentacle sweeps toward her head. Seo-jin grabs a chunk of fallen concrete, focuses hard, and the concrete shudders in his grip. It reshapes into a heavy rectangular shield, rough-edged but solid, with bands of compressed stone running through it like ribs. He throws himself between the woman and the tentacle. The impact drives him to his knees, the shield cracking but holding, the tentacle recoiling with a shriek of frustration. He drags the hunter up the stairs and doesn't stop until they reach the armory door. He kicks the armory door shut behind them, and the boom echoes up the stairway. The hunter he saved collapses against a rusted locker, clutching her shattered arm, face pale as milk. She stares at him like she can't decide if he's insane or the luckiest carrier alive. Seo-jin doesn't have time for either answer. The armory is a wreck. Rusted weapon racks line the walls, most of them empty, the floor littered with broken blades and crushed helmets. Whatever this place used to store, somebody already picked it clean years ago. But Seo-jin isn't here for swords. He's here because the Twilight Guild's salvage manifest listed something else. A sealed sub-level beneath the armory floor, marked with old military hazard stripes. If the manifest is right, that sub-level still holds unopened crates of gate stabilization gear that sells for more than a carrier makes in 3 years. The hunter coughs and asks what he's looking for. Seo-jin tells her to stay put and keep pressure on her arm. He moves through the debris, sweeping junk aside with his boot. A trapdoor, heavy iron, rusted at the hinges, with a faded radiation trefoil stamped into the metal. Seo-jin grabs the ring handle and pulls. It doesn't budge. Tentacle outside shrieks again, closer now. He can hear it slamming against the tower's lower floors. The whole building groans. Seo-jin scans the floor around him. Broken sword blades, a dented gauntlet, coils of frayed cable, chunks of concrete. The heat wakes in his chest. He grabs the junk and focuses. The metal warps in his hands, the cable slithering like a snake into the iron mechanism. The gauntlet flattens into a lever plate. The broken blades fuse into a single pry bar, thick and brutal, with a hooked end that glows faint orange. He jams the bar under the trapdoor and leans his whole weight into it. The iron shrieks. The hinges snap. Trapdoor slams open, and cold air blasts up from the darkness below. The hunter asks what the hell that was. Seo-jin doesn't answer. He drops into the sublevel, landing hard on a concrete floor. The air down here smells like ozone and old blood. Rows of metal crates stretch into the dark. Still sealed. Military markings faded but legible. Gate stabilization coils. Enough to pay off every debt he has and still have change for supplies. But he can't carry all of it alone. He climbs back up and tells the hunter they need to move. She says she can't climb with one arm. Seo-jin says he'll carry her. She's not light, and his legs are already shaking from the crafting. But he gets her down the ladder and props her against a crate. Then he starts hauling. 2 crates, then 3. Sweat drips into his eyes. The tower groans again and dust rains from the ceiling. The tentacle is in the stairwell now. He can hear it dragging wet and heavy against the concrete, searching. Seo-jin freezes. The hunter holds her breath. The tentacle slithers past the armory door and keeps going up. It didn't see them. Seo-jin exhales. He finishes hauling the 4th crate. Then he scans the sublevel one more time and spots something that isn't on the manifest. A locked footlocker shoved into a corner, half buried under collapsed shelving. The lock is old but solid. Seo-jin doesn't have time to be careful. He grabs the pry bar and cracks the locker open. Inside, wrapped in oiled cloth, is a single gauntlet. Black metal, segmented plates, with a dull purple gem set into the palm. It hums. The exact same frequency as the fragment in his belt pouch. Seo-jin's hands shake. He doesn't know what this gauntlet is or why it's here. But he knows it's connected to the fragment. He wraps it in the oiled cloth and shoves it into his pack. The hunter asks what he found. He says it's nothing, just salvage. She doesn't believe him. But she's too hurt to argue. Seo-jin rigs a harness from the frayed cable and drags the crates up one at a time. By the time he gets the 4th crate topside, his arms are on fire. The tower is quiet now. Too quiet. He pokes his head out of the armory door. The stairwell is empty. The tentacle is gone. So is the rest of the team. Seo-jin hauls the hunter up and slings her good arm over his shoulder. They move down the stairs slow and careful. Every shadow looks like a threat. They reach the ground floor and step out into the drowned street. The water is still. Then he hears shouting. 3 Twilight hunters are pinned on a rooftop across the canal, surrounded by crawling broodlings. The little ones, knee-high and chittering, with too many legs and teeth that glow green. One of the hunters spots Seo-jin and screams for help. The hunter on his shoulder says to leave her and go. Seo-jin sets her down against the tower wall. He looks at the canal between him and the rooftop. 20 feet of black water. Something moves beneath the surface. He's not swimming that. He scans the debris around him. A bent street lamp, a coil of rusted chain, chunks of asphalt. The heat rises again, sharper this time, like a knife twisting behind his ribs. He grabs the street lamp and the chain. He focuses. The metal screams as it bends, the chain links fusing into the lamppost, stretching it longer and longer. The asphalt chunks flatten into a weighted hook at the end. In 10 seconds, he's holding a crude grappling hook, 20 feet of fused metal and chain. He spins it once and hurls it across the canal. The hook catches the rooftop ledge. He yanks it tight. It holds. He tells the hunter to stay put, and then he swings. The black water rushes beneath him, something splashing below, but he's already airborne. He hits the rooftop hard and rolls. The broodlings turn toward him. 8 of them, maybe more. Their green teeth click and chitter. Seo-jin doesn't have a weapon. The grappling hook is still lodged in the ledge. He grabs the nearest thing, a broken air conditioning unit, rusted and dead. He slaps both hands on it and pushes. The heat roars through his chest, down his arms, into the metal. The unit collapses inward, plates folding and compressing. What's left is a heavy metal pipe, thick as his forearm, with sharp edges where the metal tore. Not elegant, but it swings. The first broodling lunges. Seo-jin swings the pipe like a bat, and the thing splatters across the rooftop. The other broodlings hesitate. Big mistake. He steps into them and swings again. 2 more go down. The Twilight Hunters stare, mouths open. One of them, a guy with a broken nose, asks what the hell that pipe is. Seo-jin says it's just junk. The remaining broodlings scatter, skittering down the walls into the water. The rooftop goes quiet. The broken-nose hunter says they thought they were dead. Seo-jin doesn't have time for gratitude. He asks where the rest of the team is. The hunter says half of them are dead. Captain Ryu is gone. The others scattered when the tentacles hit. There's no extraction point anymore. No rescue coming. The gate's collapse timer is ticking, and nobody knows how long they have left. Seo-jin looks at the central tower. The crates are still there, stacked by the armory door. The salvage is worth a fortune, but it won't matter if they all die here. He makes a decision. He tells the hunters to grab the injured woman from the tower base and follow him. The broken nose guy asks where they're going. Seo-jin says the gate exit is east. But the east route goes through the deep water, where the big thing is. Nobody's made it that way. Seo-jin says nobody's tried with him. They move. The group is 6 now. Seo-jin, the injured woman, broken nose, 2 other Twilight Hunters, and a carrier who crawled out from under a collapsed awning. They haul the crates between them because Seo-jin refuses to leave them. The streets narrow as they head east. The water gets deeper. The buildings lean inward. Their upper floors collapsed into each other like dead trees. Then the water starts to ripple. Seo-jin holds up a fist. Everyone stops. The ripple spreads. Then the water bulges upward. A tentacle rises, slow and deliberate, thicker than a man, covered in suckers the size of dinner plates. It doesn't attack. It hovers there, swaying, like it's waiting. Seo-jin whispers to keep moving. They edge along the building wall, pressed flat, breathing shallow. The tentacle tracks them, but it doesn't strike. Then Seo-jin sees why. At the end of the street, where the water drops off into a deeper channel, there's a nest. Broodling eggs, dozens of them, pulsing with sick green light. And in the center of the nest, half submerged, is a human body. Captain Ryu. He's still alive. Barely. His eyes find Seo-jin, and he mouths one word. Run. The tentacle isn't guarding the street. It's guarding the nest. And Seo-jin just walked his whole group into its feeding ground. The broken nose hunter panics. He bolts. The tentacle whips sideways and catches him mid-stride, crushing him before he can scream. The other hunters freeze. Seo-jin's mind races. He can't fight this thing. He can't outrun it. But the eggs are its priority. He drops to his knees and grabs a chunk of fallen masonry. The heat wakes again, weaker now, scraping the bottom of his reserves. He forces it anyway. The masonry shatters and reforms into 3 fist-sized stones, jagged and sharp. He hands one to each hunter and keeps one himself. He tells them to throw on his signal. The tentacle sways closer. Seo-jin aims at the nearest egg cluster and hurls his stone. It hits dead center and the egg bursts, spraying green fluid across the nest. The tentacle shrieks. It whips toward the shattered egg, not toward Seo-jin. He screams at the others to throw. The stones fly. 2 more eggs burst. The tentacle thrashes, wrapping around the broken eggs, trying to protect what's left. Seo-jin grabs the group and drags them forward. They run, past the nest, past the thrashing tentacle, into the deep channel. The water hits their chests. Something brushes Seo-jin's leg. He doesn't look down. They wait for what feels like hours. Then the gate exit shimmers ahead, a green wound in the air. Seo-jin shoves the others through one at a time. He goes last. He stumbles out of the gate onto muddy ground under a gray morning sky. The Twilight Guild camp is in chaos. Medics run past him. Someone shouts for a healer. Seo-jin drops to his knees and coughs up water. Then he looks up and sees Baek Ji-woo standing over him. Her coat is spattered with monster blood, and her sword is drawn. She asks what happened in there. Seo-jin says the gate went bad. Captain Ryu is dead, but he brought back the salvage. Baek Ji-woo stares at him. Then she looks at the crates, then back at him. She asks how a carrier survived when B-rank hunters didn't. Seo-jin says he got lucky. Baek Ji-woo's eyes narrow. She says luck doesn't explain the barrier one of her hunters described. The hunter with the shattered arm told her Seo-jin pulled a shield out of nowhere. A shield made of concrete and stone that shouldn't have existed. Seo-jin's heart slams against his ribs. He says it was already there, just debris he grabbed. Baek Ji-woo says the hunter described it differently. She described it forming in his hands. Seo-jin says the hunter was concussed and bleeding out. She saw things that didn't happen. Baek Ji-woo is silent for a long moment. Then she sheathes her sword. She says the Twilight Guild pays its debts. Whatever he did in there, he saved 3 of her people and brought back the salvage. That's worth something. She offers him a job. Not as a carrier, as a support crafter, attached to the guild, with pay and protection. Seo-jin asks what a support crafter does. She says he'll craft tools and gear for her hunters. Nothing legendary, just useful things. And in return, Twilight keeps his name off the registries and his face out of guild politics. Seo-jin knows what this is. It's a leash. A soft one, but still a leash. He also knows it's the best offer he's ever going to get. He says yes. Baek Ji-woo nods and tells him to report to the guild workshop at dawn. She walks away, and Seo-jin stays on his knees in the mud. The fragment in his belt pouch pulses once, warm against his hip. He doesn't know if Baek Ji-woo believes his lie, but he knows she's smart enough to suspect the truth, and smart enough to keep him close instead of selling him out. That makes her an ally, for now. That night, Seo-jin doesn't sleep. He sits in his tent with the black gauntlet laid out in front of him. The purple gem pulses in rhythm with the fragment. He presses the fragment against the gem, and the whole tent flickers purple. The heat in his chest answers. Not the slow burn of crafting, but something deeper, like a second heartbeat waking. The gauntlet doesn't fuse or transform. It hums, and for 1 second Seo-jin sees something. A vision. Or a memory. He can't tell which. A man wearing the gauntlet, standing in front of a gate so large it blotted out the sky. The man was screaming. Then the vision cuts, and Seo-jin is back in his tent, gasping. He rips the fragment away from the gauntlet. The hum stops. The tent goes dark. He wraps the gauntlet in the oiled cloth and shoves it under his mattress. He doesn't know what he just saw, but he knows he can't ask anyone. Not Yoon. Not Baek Ji-woo. Nobody. Because whatever this gauntlet is, it's tied to something bigger than crafting. Something that scared the man in the vision enough to scream at a gate the size of a city. And if Seo-jin isn't careful, that same thing is going to find him. Dawn comes cold and damp. Seo-jin walks to the Twilight Guild workshop, a converted warehouse on the edge of the camp. The walls are lined with tools, benches, and bins of salvaged materials. Baek Ji-woo is already there. She hands him a work order. 12 items. Simple stuff. Things any half-decent crafter could make. She says this is his trial run. If the quality is good, he gets the job permanently. If not, he goes back to hauling salvage. Seo-jin looks at the list. Reinforced gloves, climbing spikes, blade sharpeners, a patching kit for armor breaches. Small things, but useful. He gets to work. By midday, he's finished 6 items. The gloves are double-stitched with salvaged monster leather. The knuckles reinforced with thin metal plates. The climbing spikes are curved and sharp, with grip ridges carved into the handles. The hunters who come to pick them up don't say much. They look at the gear with something Seo-jin hasn't seen before. Respect. A young hunter named Jae-sung tests the climbing spikes on the warehouse wall. They bite deep and hold his full weight. He asks where Seo-jin learned to make these. Seo-jin says he picked it up. Jae-sung grins and says he's keeping these. By the end of the week, Seo-jin has crafted gear for half the guild. The hunters start calling him by name instead of carrier. They leave scraps outside his workshop door, good materials they'd normally throw away. A cracked sword blade, a torn monster hide, a bag of chipped mana stones. Seo-jin doesn't turn any of it down. He crafts more, faster, pushing the limits of his stamina every night. The heat in his chest is a constant low burn now, like an engine that never fully shuts off. He's getting stronger, but he's also getting noticed. One evening, as he's closing up the workshop, he spots a figure watching from across the camp. Jeon-min-kyu, the B-rank hunter, leans against a supply crate, arms crossed, eyes locked on Seo-jin. He doesn't approach. He just watches. Seo-jin feels the fragment pulse against his hip. He turns and walks the other way. But he knows Jeon-min-kyu isn't done. Later that night, Jeon-min-kyu finds Baek Ji-woo in her private tent. He asks why she hired a carrier as a crafter. Baek Ji-woo says Seo-jin earned it. Jeon-min-kyu says that's not what he's asking. He says he's been watching Seo-jin. He says the kid survived an A-rank gate alone, and a B-rank gate that killed half her team. He asks if she thinks that's normal. Baek Ji-woo says nothing. Jeon-min-kyu leans closer and says there's a rumor about a carrier who can make weapons from garbage. He asks if she's heard it. Baek Ji-woo says she's heard a lot of rumors. She says most of them are lies told by jealous hunters who can't stand being outperformed. Jeon-min-kyu's jaw tightens. He says if she's hiding something, it's going to come out eventually. And when it does, the guilds will tear Twilight apart to get to it. Baek Ji-woo stands. She tells Jeon-min-kyu that he's a guest in her camp. She suggests he remember that. Jeon-min-kyu leaves. Seo-jin, crouched outside the tent with a sound-amplifying disc he crafted from a broken radio, hears every word. The next morning, Baek Ji-woo summons Seo-jin to her tent. She closes the flap behind him. She says Jeon-min-kyu knows something. She asks if Seo-jin wants to tell her what it is. Seo-jin is quiet for a long moment. Then he reaches into his belt pouch and pulls out the folding knife. He sets it on the table between them. He says he made it from a rusted gear, and he can make more. He tells her everything. The heat in his chest, the junk that reshapes in his hands, the exhaustion that follows. He tells her about the A-rank gate and the glowing dagger that crumbled to dust. He doesn't tell her about the fragment or the gauntlet. Some secrets stay buried. Baek Ji-woo listens without interrupting. When he's done, she stares at the knife for a long time. Then she looks at him. She says his ability is the most valuable thing in this camp. She also says it's a death sentence if the wrong people find out. She asks what he wants. Seo-jin says he wants to get strong enough that nobody can take it from him. He wants to find out who killed his parents, and he wants to make them pay. Baek Ji-woo's expression doesn't change. But something shifts behind her eyes. She says Twilight will protect him, not out of charity, out of mutual interest. He crafts for her guild, makes them stronger, and in return she keeps his secret and gives him resources. Seo-jin asks if she's willing to risk her guild for him. Baek Ji-woo says she's been looking for an edge against the big guilds for years. She just found it. She extends her hand. Seo-jin shakes it. The deal is made. Yoon drags Seo-jin out of the workshop before dawn. The old hunter says crafting gear is useless if Seo-jin collapses halfway through a gate. He leads him to a clearing behind the supply tents where the ground is packed hard. Two wooden posts stand at the far end with a rusted iron bar laid across them. Yoon points at the bar and tells Seo-jin to pull himself up until his chin clears it. Seo-jin grabs the bar and pulls. He manages 3. His arms shake on the 4th, and he drops to the dirt wheezing. Yoon doesn't say anything. He just crosses his arms and waits. Seo-jin gets up and does 3 more. This becomes the routine every morning for 2 weeks straight. Yoon adds a weighted vest made from salvaged monster hide stuffed with scrap iron. Seo-jin wears it while running laps around the camp perimeter before the hunters wake up. The first day he vomits behind the mess tent. The 5th day, he finishes the run without stopping. Yoon watches from his usual spot near the gate and nods once. Then he hands Seo-jin a wooden practice sword and tells him to swing until his shoulders burn. Seo-jin asks how this helps his crafting. Yoon says crafting drains his body like combat drains a hunter. A bigger tank means he can craft longer without drop. Seo-jin swings the sword 500 times that morning. By the end, his arms feel like dead meat hanging from his shoulders. But the heat in his chest doesn't flicker once during the whole session. His reserves are expanding. After physical training, Yoon drills him on gate tactics. He draws maps in the dirt with a stick and marks monster nest patterns. He teaches Seo-jin how to read broodling migration trails from cracked eggshells and disturbed soil. Seo-jin absorbs it all. He asks questions that surprise Yoon. questions most carriers never think to ask, like how to tell if a nest has been abandoned or if the mother is still inside. Yoon answers every one of them. One night after training, Seo-jin crafts a set of reinforced greaves from a broken steel door. He gives them to Yoon. The old hunter doesn't say thank you, but he wears them the next morning. That's how Seo-jin knows they're good. Baek Ji-woo calls Seo-jin to her tent at the end of the second week. She's standing over a long wooden crate with the lid already pried off. Inside are ingots of tempered steel, a roll of enchanted leather, and a core stone from a B-rank worm. She says this is his first real test. Baek Ji-woo tells him to craft her a weapon. Not a knife or a folding tool. A real weapon that can stand up to A-rank combat. He says she's been fighting with the same blade for 3 years, and it's starting to microfracture. If Seo-jin can make something better, she'll know he's worth the risk she's taking. Seo-jin looks at the materials, and the heat in his chest pulses hard. He tells her he'll need 3 days, and nobody in the workshop while he works. She agrees and posts 2 of her most trusted hunters outside the door. Seo-jin starts with the core stone. It's the size of his fist and still warm to the touch even weeks after the worm died. He places it on his workbench and lays both hands flat against its surface. The fragment in his belt pouch hums in response. He doesn't use it, not yet. This one he wants to do mostly on his own. The heat builds in his chest and flows down his arms into his fingers. The core stone begins to crack. Not shatter. Crack along natural fault lines that Seo-jin can see in his mind, like glowing veins. He guides the heat into those cracks, and the stone splits into 5 perfectly shaped shards. Each one pulses with residual worm energy. He sets them aside and turns to the steel ingots. Melting them down takes the rest of the first day. Seo-jin feeds his heat into a makeshift forge he built from a broken brazier and a bellows he stitched from monster lung membrane. The steel glows white hot, and he folds it over and over, hammering out impurities with a chunk of gatestone. By midnight, his arms are screaming, but the blade is taking shape. He works through the second day without sleep. The leather wrap for the grip gets treated with a solution he mixes from crushed manastone dust and resin. It binds to the tang of the blade like it's growing there naturally. Seo-jin sets the worm shards into the flat of the blade one by one. Each shard locks into a groove he carved with the tip of his folding knife. The moment the last shard seats itself, the whole blade hums. A low, clean tone, like a tuning fork struck once. The heat in his chest spikes, and Seo-jin staggers against the workbench. But he doesn't black out. His reserves hold. On the third morning, Seo-jin walks out of the workshop carrying the finished sword wrapped in oiled cloth. He hasn't eaten in 2 days, and his hands are shaking. But the blade is perfect. He brings it to Baek Ji-woo's tent and sets it on her table. She unwraps it and goes completely still. The sword is longer than her old blade, with a slight curve that mirrors a hunting cat's claw. The worm shards are embedded along the spine, and they pulse with a soft amber light. Baek Ji-woo picks it up, the shards flare bright, and a wave of heat rolls off the blade. She says she can feel the worm's breath in the steel. Seo-jin tells her the shards will superheat on command, doubling the cutting power against armored targets. He also embedded a failsafe. If the blade ever breaks, the shards will detonate outward, giving her one last attack. Baek Ji-woo stares at him for a long moment. She asks how he knows how to do that. Seo-jin says he just knows. It's the truth. The knowledge comes to him in the moment of crafting, like the materials are whispering what they want to become. Baek Ji-woo sheathes the sword and straps it to her hip. She tells Seo-jin he's officially Twilight's mastercraft. Then her expression hardens and she says they have a problem. Jeon Min-kyu left camp 3 days ago. He told his handler he was scouting a potential gate for his guild, but he never came back. Baek Ji-woo's contacts in the city sent word that he was seen entering the Black Sun Guild headquarters. Seo-jin's blood goes cold. He asks if Jeon Min-kyu has proof. Baek Ji-woo says he has enough to make Black Sun interested. A carrier who survived an A-rank gate alone. A carrier who started producing high-grade gear out of nowhere. A carrier who jumped into a broodling nest and walked out without a scratch. That's not proof of a crafting ability, but it's proof that something is wrong with the picture. And Black Sun doesn't need proof to start digging. They just need an excuse. 2 days later, the messenger arrives. He's not a hunter. He's a clerk in a black suit, with a silver pin on his lapel shaped like a sun with jagged rays. He walks into Twilight's camp like he owns the place and asks for Kang Seo-jin by name. Baek Ji-woo intercepts him at the gate. The clerk hands her a sealed envelope with Black Sun's official crest pressed into the wax. He says Chairman Hwang Jin-ho extends an invitation to Kang Seo-jin for a private meeting at Black Sun headquarters. He says the chairman has heard impressive things about Twilight's new crafter and wishes to discuss a business arrangement. The clerk smiles when he says it. It's the smile of a man who already knows the answer. Baek Ji-woo takes the envelope and tells the clerk she'll deliver the message. The clerk says the chairman expects a response within 3 days. He leaves. Seo-jin reads the letter in Baek Ji-woo's tent. The wording is polite, almost friendly. It says nothing about crafting abilities or A-rank gates or broodling nests. It just says Black Sun is always looking for talented individuals, and Kang Seo-jin's reputation precedes him. Baek Ji-woo says it's a trap. Seo-jin knows it's a trap, but refusing the invitation is also a trap. If he says no, Black Sun will take it as an admission that he's hiding something. They'll send hunters instead of clerks next time. Seo-jin tells Baek Ji-woo he's not going. He says he'll craft gear for Twilight and stay inside the camp until Black Sun loses interest. Baek Ji-woo says that's not how Black Sun operates. They don't lose interest, they escalate. Yoon doesn't show up for morning training the next day. Seo-jin waits at the clearing for an hour. Then he checks Yoon's tent. It's empty. The bed is made. The greaves Seo-jin crafted are hanging on the tent pole untouched. A folded piece of paper sits on Yoon's pillow. Seo-jin picks it up with his hands shaking. The handwriting is blocky and rushed. It says Yoon Tae-hyung is in Black Sun custody. It says he will be returned unharmed if Kang Seo-jin comes to Black Sun headquarters within 24 hours and agrees to craft one item of the chairman's choosing. If he refuses or involves the Hunter Association, Yoon will be executed. The note is signed with a single name, Oh Dae-hyun. Seo-jin reads the note 3 times. Then he folds it carefully and puts it in his belt pouch next to the fragment. He walks to Baek Ji-woo's tent and hands her the note without a word. Baek Ji-woo reads it, and her jaw tightens until the muscles stand out. She says this is exactly what she warned him about. She says Black Sun doesn't negotiate, they take. Seo-jin says he's going. Baek Ji-woo tells him he'll die. Seo-jin says Yoon saved his life. He says Yoon knew about his ability and kept it secret when he could have sold him out for a fortune. He owes the old man everything. Baek Ji-woo studies his face for a long moment. Then she tells him to wait. She opens a trunk at the foot of her cot and pulls out a small black pouch. Inside are 3 objects. A signal flare that will broadcast an emergency beacon to every Twilight Hunter within 10 kilometers. A thin wire garrote woven from shadow silk that can cut through steel. And a single earring fitted with a micro-transmitter that links directly to Baek Ji-woo's personal receiver. She says she'll have a team positioned 2 blocks from Black Sun headquarters. If Seo-jin speaks the code word into the earring, they breach the building in 60 seconds. Seo-jin asks what the code word is. Baek Ji-woo tells him. He memorizes it and puts the earring in. The garrote goes into the lining of his boot. The signal flare gets tucked into the back of his belt. Seo-jin leaves Twilight Camp at dusk. He walks alone through the carrier district and into the merchant quarter where Black Sun built their fortress. The headquarters is a converted office tower with black glass windows and armed guards at every entrance. A hunter in Black Sun colors stops him at the main gate. Seo-jin gives his name. The hunter's expression doesn't change, but his hand drifts toward the sword at his hip. He tells Seo-jin to follow him. They ride an elevator to the 40th floor. The doors open onto a long hallway lined with display cases. Inside the cases are weapons, legendary-grade swords, axes, and spears from gates all over the world. Seo-jin recognizes crafting work in some of them. Not his ability, something older and cruder but still powerful. At the end of the hallway is a set of double doors carved from gate stone. The hunter stops and tells Seo-jin to go in alone. Seo-jin pushes the doors open. The room beyond is massive. A single chair sits at the far end made of black iron and draped with the hide of something that died screaming. In the chair is a man Seo-jin has only seen in news broadcasts and old photographs. Oh Dae-hyun, S-rank enforcer of the Black Sun Guild. He's not smiling. He gestures to a spot on the floor in front of him and tells Seo-jin to kneel. Seo-jin doesn't kneel. He asks where Yoon is. Oh Dae-hyun's eyes narrow. Then he laughs. It's a dry sound like bones grinding together. He says the carrier has spine. He snaps his fingers, and a panel in the wall slides open, revealing a holding cell behind reinforced glass. Yoon is inside. He's alive, but his face is bruised, and one of his arms is wrapped in a bloody bandage. Seo-jin feels the heat in his chest spike so hard, the fragment in his pouch vibrates against his hip. Oh Dae-hyun says Yoon will stay alive as long as Seo-jin cooperates. He says the chairman wants a weapon, not some cheap dagger or a pair of climbing spikes. a real weapon, crafted from materials Black Sun will provide. If the weapon meets the chairman's standards, Seo-jin and Yoon walk free. If it doesn't, both of them die. Seo-jin looks at Yoon through the glass. Yoon shakes his head slightly. Even beaten and bleeding, the old man is telling him to run. Seo-jin turns back to Oh Dae-hyun. He asks what kind of weapon. Oh Dae-hyun smiles and says the chairman wants a sword capable of killing an SSS rank hunter. He doesn't blink. He just stands there in front of Oh Dae-hyun's iron chair and lets the demand hang in the air. A sword that can kill an SSS rank hunter. That's the kind of weapon that rewrites the entire power structure of the hunter world. Our boy keeps his face flat, but inside his brain is screaming. Oh Dae-hyun waits for the fear to hit. Seo-jin doesn't give him the satisfaction. He asks to see the material. Oh Dae-hyun snaps his fingers again, and a different panel in the wall slides open. Behind it is a workshop, forge with a bellows already pumping, an anvil scarred from years of use, and a table covered in black cloth. Two black sun guards lift the cloth away. Underneath are 3 items. A length of dark metal that drinks the light from the room, a vial of something that moves inside the glass like it's alive, and a single shard of gatestone carved into a perfect cube. Seo-jin walks toward the table, and the heat in his chest spikes so hard he nearly staggers. The fragment in his belt pouch is vibrating like a trapped animal. These aren't normal materials. This is abyss iron. Tears of the Devourer. Destabilized gate core. Any one of those would sell for more than a carrier makes in 10 lifetimes. Black Sun is handing him all 3 and telling him to build a god killer. Oh Dae-hyun leans back in his chair and tells him to begin. Seo-jin picks up the abyss iron first. It's cold in a way that has nothing to do with temperature. The cold seeps into his knuckles and climbs his forearm like frost. He closes his eyes and lets the heat in his chest flow outward. The iron responds. Not to heat in the forge or a hammer on an anvil, but to something deeper. The fragment in his pouch pulses once, and the abyss iron begins to soften in his hands. The guards step back. Even Oh Dae-hyun's expression flickers. Seo-jin works the metal without tools. His fingers trace the grain of the iron, and he feels every impurity, every microscopic fracture, every place the material wants to break. The tears of the devourer go next. He uncorks the vial, and the liquid inside screams. A sound so high and thin it's almost not there. He pours it over the abyss iron, and the metal drinks it in. The surface ripples, turns liquid for one heart, then solidifies again darker than before. The gatestone cube is the last piece. Seo-jin presses it into the core of the blade, where the tang meets the guard. The stone sinks into the metal like a stone dropped into still water, and the sword wakes up. It doesn't glow or hum or any of the theatrical garbage cheap weapons do. It just exists in a way that makes every other object in the room feel less real. Oh Dae-hyun leans forward. His eyes are hungry, but Seo-jin isn't done. Because while his hands are shaping the surface of the blade, his mind is working on something else entirely. A flaw. He finds a stress line in the abyss iron's grain near the midpoint of the blade. A place where the tears didn't bond completely with the metal. It's microscopic. No inspection will catch it. No test will reveal it. But under enough pressure, under the right kind of impact, that flaw will spread like a crack through ice. The sword will shatter, and whoever is holding it will have about half a second to realize they just died. Seo-jin seals the flaw with a layer of cosmetic perfection. The blade looks flawless, feels flawless, swings like a dream and cuts like a promise. But it's a bomb waiting for the right moment. He sets the finished sword on the table and steps back. His legs are shaking. The heat in his chest has burned down to embers, and his vision is going gray at the edges. He's never crafted anything this powerful before. The stamina cost hit him like a truck. Oh Dae-hyun rises from his chair and walks to the table. He picks up the sword and the blade sings, a low, dangerous note that vibrates in the teeth. He tests the edge with his thumb, and a bead of blood wells up immediately. He smiles. It's the smile of a man who just won a war before it started. He tells Seo-jin the chairman will be pleased. Then he orders the guards to take the sword to the testing chamber. Seo-jin asks about Yoon. Oh Dae-hyun waves a hand and says he'll see the old man soon enough. First, the weapon must prove itself. They drag Seo-jin to an observation room overlooking a testing arena. The arena is a concrete pit with scorch marks and deep gouges in the walls. A massive target dummy stands at the far end, built from layers of monster hide and reinforced steel. The guards mount the sword in a testing rig. Clamps lock around the hilt, and a mechanical arm draws the blade back. Seo-jin watches through the observation glass, and his heart is pounding. If the flaw activates now, everything is over. The mechanical arm swings. The sword cuts through the target dummy like it's made of wet paper. Monster hide parts. Steel shears. The dummy collapses in 2 clean halves. The blade is still humming. Still whole. Still perfect. Seo-jin lets out a breath he didn't know he was holding. The flaw held. Oh Dae-hyun claps him on the shoulder hard enough to bruise. He tells Seo-jin he's earned his freedom. Then he adds that freedom comes with conditions. They leave the observation room and walk back through the hallway of display cases. Seo-jin's legs are still unsteady, but he keeps his back straight. The guards open the holding cell, and Yoon stumbles out. The old man's face is a mess of purple bruises, and one eye is swollen shut. But he's walking. He's alive. Seo-jin moves toward him, and Yoon grabs his arm. His grip is weak, but his voice is steady. He asks if Seo-jin gave them what they wanted. Seo-jin nods. Yoon's expression cracks into something between relief and dread. He knows what it means to owe Black Sun a weapon. Oh Dae-hyun leads them to a different room. This one is smaller with a table and 2 chairs, and reinforced walls that hum with a low electronic frequency. He sits across from them and folds his hands. He tells Seo-jin the chairman is grateful for the sword. But gratitude in Black Sun comes with a leash. Seo-jin will craft for Black Sun whenever the chairman requests. He will answer every summons within 12 hours. He will never craft a weapon of equal or greater power for any other guild. If he violates these terms, Yoon dies first. Then Baek Ji-woo, then every carrier in Seo-jin's district. Oh Dae-hyun says it like he's reading a grocery list. Seo-jin's jaw locks so tight his teeth ache. He asks how long the leash lasts. Oh Dae-hyun smiles and says, forever. Yoon starts to speak, but Seo-jin puts a hand on his arm and stops him. Our boy looks Oh Dae-hyun dead in the eyes. He says he understands. He doesn't mean it. Not a word. But he says it like he does, and Oh Dae-hyun believes him. Because Oh Dae-hyun has never met a carrier who could lie to an S rank and keep a straight face. Amateur mistake. They're escorted out of the room and down a service elevator. The guards dump them at a side exit into a dark alley behind the tower. The door slams shut, and the lock engages with a heavy clang. Yoon leans against the alley wall and slides down until he's sitting on the ground. He looks up at Seo-jin and asks what really happened in there. Seo-jin crouches next to him and speaks low. He tells Yoon the sword has a flaw, a stress fracture buried in the abyss iron. Under enough force, it will shatter. He built a kill switch into the chairman's weapon, and Black Sun doesn't know. Yoon stares at him. Then he laughs. It's a broken, raspy sound, but it's real. He says Seo-jin is either the bravest or the stupidest carrier he's ever met. Maybe both. Seo-jin helps Yoon to his feet, and they start the long walk back to Twilight territory. But before they've gone 3 blocks, Seo-jin's earring crackles. Baek Ji-woo's voice comes through thin and urgent. He says a Black Sun hunter just transmitted an internal communique on an open channel. The chairman is accelerating his timetable. Something about a gate in the northern district. Something about a ritual. And the name Hwang Jin-ho keeps appearing in the transmission. Seo-jin stops walking. Hwang Jin-ho. The name hits him in the chest like a physical blow. He asks Baek Ji-woo to repeat the transmission. She does. Communique mentions a gate collapse 10 years ago. The Sung-soo fissure. The one that killed 37 civilians. The one the official report blamed on a structural failure in the gate stabilization coils. But the Black Sun transmission says something different. It says the collapse wasn't an accident. It was a test. Hwang Jin-ho triggered the collapse deliberately to draw out a specific target. 2 carriers who were inside the fissure at the time. A man and a woman. Their names are listed in the communique. Baek Ji-woo reads them. Kang Do-yoon, Park Soo-yeon, Seo-jin's parents. The world tilts. Yoon grabs his shoulder and tells him to breathe. Seo-jin doesn't hear him. All he hears is the fragment in his pouch screaming. All he feels is the heat in his chest building and building until it feels like his ribs are going to crack. The communique says Hwang Jin-ho was looking for a specific object. Something the Kang family had hidden for generations. A fragment of the first gate. The origin point of all abyss material. The black metal shard currently sitting in Seo-jin's belt pouch. He reaches down and touches it through the leather. The fragment pulses back. For the first time, it doesn't feel like a tool. It feels like a target. Baek Ji-woo's voice cuts through the static. She tells him to get back to camp immediately. She says they need to talk. She says everything he thought he knew about his parents is wrong. Seo-jin starts running. Yoon follows as fast as his battered body allows. The alley blurs past. The merchant quarter gives way to the carrier district. Seo-jin's lungs are burning and his vision is tunneling, but he doesn't slow down. He reaches Twilight Camp and bursts through the gate. Baek Ji-woo is waiting in her tent with a map spread across the table. She looks up when he enters and her face is pale. She says the Black Sun transmission wasn't the only thing she found. She pulled the original incident report on the Sung-Soo collapse. The official version is a lie. Witness statements were altered. Evidence was destroyed. And the hunter who filed the initial complaint, the one who tried to blow the whistle, was killed in a gate accident 3 days later. Seo-jin asks who the hunter was. Baek Ji-woo hands him a photograph. It's a younger Yoon Tae-hyung, standing in front of a guild hall with a team of hunters. On the back of the photo is a handwritten note. It says the Kang family didn't die in a collapse. They were murdered. And the man who ordered the hit is still waiting for his weapon. Seo-jin turns to Yoon. Yoon is standing in the tent entrance, with tears cutting tracks through the blood on his face. He says he tried to tell Seo-jin. For years he tried, but Black Sun was watching. They were always watching. Seo-jin asks if everything Yoon taught him, every piece of advice, every offer of help, was just guilt. Yoon shakes his head. He says it was penance. He says he was there the night Seo-jin's parents died. He was the hunter assigned to guard the gate, and he failed. Seo-jin doesn't speak for a long moment. Then he asks one question. He asks if Yoon knows where Hwang Jin-ho is right now. Yoon says yes. The chairman is in the northern district, preparing a gate for a ritual that will amplify the heart of the abyss. If the ritual succeeds, Hwang Jin-ho becomes unstoppable. If it fails, the gate destabilizes, and half the city goes with it. Seo-jin looks at the photograph, at his parents' names on the communique, at the fragment pulsing against his hip. Then he looks at Baek Ji-woo. He tells her he needs access to the Twilight Armory. All of it. Every broken weapon, every salvaged coil, every piece of scrap metal she's been stockpiling for years. She asks what he's planning. Seo-jin picks up a rusted gear from the corner of the tent and holds it in his palm. The heat in his chest ignites. Gear warps and folds, and becomes a blade in the space of a heartbeat. He says he's going to build an army, and then he's going to tear Black Sun apart piece by piece. The fragment in his pouch hums in agreement. He's alive. Barely. Lim Hyun-soo is a carrier who's been worked to the bone for 3 years straight, and it shows in every rib that pokes through his shirt. He's huddled in a corner of the processing floor when Seo-jin gets marched past, and their eyes meet for maybe half a second. That half second is enough. Seo-jin sees someone who stopped hoping a long time ago. Someone who still shows up anyway. The guards shove Seo-jin toward a workstation piled with corroded armor plates, and Hyun-soo is already there, sorting rusted pauldrons into piles. Neither of them speaks. The guards are watching. Seo-jin starts sorting metal, and Hyun-soo slides him a piece of wire without looking up. Not a conversation. Just a thing that happens between two people who understand exactly how bad this place is. Seo-jin palms the wire and gets to work. Later during the shift change, when the guards swap out and the floor goes loud with clanking metal, Hyun-soo leans close. He asks if Seo-jin is the crafter everyone's whispering about. Seo-jin doesn't answer. Hyun-soo says he doesn't care either way. He says he's been here since the guild bought his contract from a bankrupt extraction company, and he's watched 17 carriers die on this floor alone. He's not looking for a hero. He's looking for a way out. Seo-jin asks if he means it. Hyun-soo pulls up his sleeve and shows him a scar running from wrist to elbow. It's a brand. Black Sun's sigil burned into his skin with a heated iron the day he tried to run. They caught him before he made it past the outer gate. They made everyone watch while they did it. Seo-jin looks at the scar and feels the heat in his chest pulse once. He tells Hyun-soo to be ready when the moment comes. Hyun-soo laughs without smiling. He asks what moment. Seo-jin doesn't answer. The wire Hyun-soo gave him becomes a lockpick in the space of 3 breaths. He hides it in the seam of his pants and waits. 2 days pass. Seo-jin crafts during every shift, turning out repair-grade bracers and patched-together greaves, never showing the full extent of what he can do. The guards stop watching him so closely. Oh Dae-hyun stops visiting the floor entirely. That's when Seo-jin makes his move. Night shift. Skeleton crew. 4 guards on the processing floor, 2 at the cell block entrance, 1 patrolling the corridor between. Seo-jin picks his own cell lock in under 10 seconds. The lockpick bends but holds. He slips into the corridor barefoot, pressing his back against the cold stone, and moves toward the carrier barracks where Hyun-soo sleeps. The patrolling guard rounds the corner early. Seo-jin freezes. The guard pauses, squints into the darkness, and takes 1 step closer. Seo-jin's hand closes around a chunk of loose mortar he scraped off the wall earlier. The heat in his chest ignites. The mortar hardens and sharpens into a throwing spike in the span of a heartbeat. He hurls it at the guard's throat. The spike hits, and the guard goes down without a sound. Seo-jin catches the body before it hits the floor and drags it into an empty cell. He takes the guard's keyring and keeps moving. Hyun-soo is awake when Seo-jin reaches the barracks. Of course he's awake. He hasn't slept through the night in 3 years. Seo-jin shows him the keys and asks if he still wants that way out. Hyun-soo is on his feet before Seo-jin finishes the sentence. They move together through the cell block, unlocking doors and whispering to carriers who stare at them with wide, disbelieving eyes. Most of them are too broken to follow, too scared, too sure this is another trap designed to weed out the disloyal. But 3 of them rise. 3 carriers who've been branded like Hyun-soo, who've watched their friends die on the processing floor, who've got nothing left to lose. Seo-jin leads them toward the detention wing, where Yoon is being held. They reach the detention wing, and Seo-jin uses the guard's keys on the heavy iron door. It swings open with a groan that echoes down the corridor like a gunshot. Someone shouts from the guard station. Boots hammer against stone. Seo-jin tells Hyun-soo to get Yoon, and points toward the 3rd cell on the left. He turns to face the incoming guards. 2 of them, both armed with shock batons crackling blue at the tips. Seo-jin rips a ventilation grate off the wall, and the heat surges from his chest into his hands. The grate warps and stretches, and becomes a staff with weighted ends in 3 seconds flat. He swings it into the first guard's knee, and the crack of bone is louder than the baton. The guard drops. The second guard lunges, and Seo-jin catches the baton on the staff, twisting it aside, then drives the weighted end into the guy's solar plexus. He folds like wet cardboard. Hyun-soo comes out of the cell with Yoon's arms slung over his shoulder. Yoon is barely conscious. His face is swollen, and his left leg drags behind him. But his eyes snap open when he sees Seo-jin. He says he knew Seo-jin would come. Seo-jin tells him to save the gratitude for when they're not surrounded. They run. The 3 carriers who followed Seo-jin grab weapons off the unconscious guards and form a loose perimeter around Yoon. Seo-jin leads them through the service corridors, the ones Hyun-soo has memorized during 3 years of hauling scrap. They bypass the main hall entirely and cut through the laundry room toward the loading bay. The loading bay is chaos. Somebody tripped the alarm. Red lights strobe across the concrete floor, and a heavy steel shutter is already descending over the vehicle exit. Seo-jin sprints toward it and slides a rusted crowbar off a nearby shelf. The heat ignites. The crowbar becomes a wedge, and he jams it under the shutter with both hands. The shutter groans and stops 3 feet above the ground, enough to crawl under. Hyun-soo goes first, dragging Yoon after him. The 3 carriers follow. Seo-jin is the last one through. He kicks the wedge free as he rolls under, and the shutter slams down behind them, buying them maybe 30 seconds before the guards figure out how to open it. They're in the outer yard now, a stretch of cracked asphalt between the loading bay and the perimeter wall. Beyond the wall is the lower city, a maze of abandoned factories and condemned housing blocks where Black Sun's reach gets thinner. Seo-jin spots a supply truck parked near the gate. Keys in the ignition. Somebody was getting ready for an early run. Hyun-soo boosts Yoon into the truck bed while the 3 carriers pile in after him. Seo-jin slides into the driver's seat and twists the key. The engine turns over. Gate ahead is still open, and the 2 guards posted there are running toward the loading bay alarm, leaving their post unattended. Seo-jin floors it. The truck barrels through the gate and takes the corner onto the access road with 2 wheels lifting off the ground. Behind them, the alarm keeps screaming. But the sound gets smaller and smaller until it's swallowed by the hum of the engine. Yoon is coughing in the truck bed, blood on his lips. Hyun-soo is pressing a rag against a wound in Yoon's side that Seo-jin didn't see before. He asks how bad it is. Hyun-soo says Yoon needs a medic, soon. Seo-jin drives faster. The access road dumps them into the industrial quarter, and from there, Seo-jin takes a series of turns that don't make sense unless you've spent years hauling salvage through these streets. He's been here before, back when he was just a carrier with no powers and no hope, dragging carts of scrap metal through alleys that smelled like rot and diesel. He knows every blind corner, every dead end, every rooftop that connects to another rooftop. He pulls the truck into an abandoned textile mill and kills the engine. For a long moment, nobody moves. The only sound is Yoon's ragged breathing and the distant wail of sirens that haven't found them yet. Hyun-soo asks what now. Seo-jin gets out of the truck and scans the mill. Broken looms, rusted pulleys, mounds of rotting fabric. This place is a graveyard of industrial trash, which means it's an armory. He picks up a handful of rusted bolts from the floor, and the heat in his chest surges. The bolts fuse into caltrops, sharp and jagged, and he scatters them across the entrance in a loose semicircle. Then he grabs a length of chain dangling from a broken crane and crafts it into a tripwire, stringing it across the main doorway at ankle height. Hyun-soo watches with his mouth slightly open. He asks what Seo-jin is. Seo-jin says he's a carrier. Then he keeps working. An hour passes. Seo-jin turns the mill into a kill box. Spiked pits covered with rotted tarpaulin. Spring-loaded bolts rigged to door frames. A weighted net made from steel cables that will drop on anyone who triggers the pressure plate in the center of the floor. By the time he's done, his hands are shaking, and his vision is going gray at the edges. The heat in his chest is down to embers. The mill is a fortress. Hyun-soo has been tending to Yoon, and the old hunter is stable for now, propped against a loom with a bandage wrapped tight around his torso. One of the carriers has taken up watch on the roof. The other two are sleeping in shifts. Seo-jin sits down next to Yoon and stares at the entrance. He can feel the fragment pulsing in his pouch. Not warning him. Waiting. Yoon's eyes open. He says he's sorry. Seo-jin tells him to save it. Yoon says he doesn't mean about the gate. He means about what's coming, he says. Oh Dae-hyun won't let this stand. Black Sun can't afford to let a crafter walk free. Not after everything Seo-jin has seen inside their walls. They'll send hunters, not just any hunters. The Black Sun hunting party. And they'll bring Jeon Min-kyu. Seo-jin asks how Yoon knows that. Yoon says Jeon Min-kyu approached Oh Dae-hyun 3 days ago, offering information about Seo-jin in exchange for a place in the guild. He switched sides the moment he realized Seo-jin had value. The sirens are getting closer now. Seo-jin stands up and walks to the entrance. He looks out through a gap in the boarded windows and sees headlights cutting through the fog on the road below. 3 vehicles, maybe 12 hunters, all of them armed. All of them coming straight for the mill. Seo-jin pulls the folding knife from his boot and holds it in one hand. With the other, he touches the fragment through his pouch. The heat in his chest flares once, hungry and sharp. He tells Hyun-soo to get Yoon deeper into the building. Then he steps into the doorway and waits for the hunting party to arrive. The first vehicle stops 50 yards from the mill entrance. Doors open. Hunters fan out into a loose formation with weapons drawn. And there he is at the center of them. Jeon Min-kyu, wearing a Black Sun insignia on his coat, grinning. He calls out to Seo-jin and says he always knew the carrier was hiding something. He says Oh Dae-hyun sends his regards. He says this doesn't have to end badly. Seo-jin doesn't answer. He just crouches and presses his palm against the tripwire anchor at his feet. The first hunter steps forward. He hits the tripwire and goes down hard. And before anyone can react, 3 more hunters step onto the caltrop field and start screaming. Jeon Min-kyu's grin vanishes. Seo-jin stands up and walks backward into the mill. He doesn't run. He wants them to follow. They do. The next hunter through the door triggers the spring-loaded bolts and takes one through the shoulder. The hunter behind him catches a weighted net to the face and goes down in a tangle of steel cables and broken bones. Jeon Min-kyu is shouting orders now. But the formation is already broken, and the remaining hunters are hesitating at the threshold. They know they're walking into a trap. They just don't know how many more traps are waiting. The answer is a lot. Seo-jin has turned this mill into a labyrinth of pain, and every step they take deeper inside costs them more than the last. A spiked pit claims 2 more. A hallway rigged with collapsing shelves buries one in a ton of rusted machinery. By the time Jeon Min-kyu reaches the main floor, he has 3 hunters left. Seo-jin is waiting for him in the center of the room with a metal pipe in one hand and a jagged blade in the other. Jeon Min-kyu draws his sword. He says Seo-jin is out of tricks. Seo-jin tightens his grip on the pipe and feels the fragment hum against his hip. He says Jeon Min-kyu is out of hunters. Then he attacks. The pipe swings in a wide arc, forcing Jeon Min-kyu to dodge backward into a patch of floor that Seo-jin weakened with acid from a rusted battery. The floorboards crack. Jeon Min-kyu stumbles, and Seo-jin is on him before he can recover. The blade kisses Jeon Min-kyu's sword arm once, twice, opening shallow cuts that bleed freely and make his grip slippery. Jeon Min-kyu snarls and swings wild, but he's already off balance, and the blade in his hand feels heavier with every passing second. Seo-jin steps inside his guard and drives the pipe into his ribs. Jeon Min-kyu drops. The remaining hunters rush forward, and Seo-jin meets them with the pipe and the blade and the last embers of heat in his chest. He takes a cut to the shoulder, a punch to the jaw. He doesn't stop. When it's over, Seo-jin is still standing, and Jeon Min-kyu is on his knees with his hands pressed against his bleeding arm. He's gasping. He says Seo-jin is making a mistake. He says Black Sun will burn the lower city to ash before they let a carrier escape. Seo-jin crouches down and looks Jeon Min-kyu in the eyes. He asks if Jeon Min-kyu remembers the Sung-soo Fisher. Jeon Min-kyu's face goes pale. Seo-jin says he'll take that as a yes. Then he stands up and signals to Hyun-soo. They drag Jeon Min-kyu into the truck bed next to Yoon, and the three conscious hunters they leave tied up in the mill for Black Sun to find later. Seo-jin gets behind the wheel again. The engine roars. They pull out of the mill and head deeper into the lower city, where the streets get narrower and the buildings lean together like tired drunks. Baek Ji-woo's safe house is somewhere in the old canal district. Hyun-soo has the coordinates. They drive through the night, and Seo-jin doesn't let himself feel the pain in his shoulder until the sun starts to bleed gray across the horizon. They reach the safe house an hour after dawn. It's a basement unit under a collapsed warehouse, accessible only through a drainage grate that looks like it hasn't been opened in a decade. Baek Ji-woo is already there. She takes one look at Yoon, at Hyun-soo, at the three half-dead carriers, and the bleeding Jeon Min-kyu in the truck, and she doesn't ask questions. She just starts issuing orders. Medics are called. A perimeter is set. Jeon Min-kyu is dragged inside and tied to a chair in the boiler room. Seo-jin sits down against a wall and closes his eyes for what feels like the first time in 3 days. The fragment pulses once against his hip. Softer now, almost satisfied. He doesn't let himself sleep. He knows this safe house won't stay safe for long. Black Sun is already hunting them. Oh Dae-hyun doesn't leave loose ends. He doesn't let himself sleep, but his body is screaming for it. The fragment at his hip goes quiet, like it's holding its breath. Hyun-soo is wrapping bandages around Yoon's side in the corner. Yoon is awake. Barely, his face the color of old parchment. Blood is still seeping through the gauze, but it's slowing. Medics won't arrive for another hour. Baek Ji-woo is on the comms, calling in every favor she's ever earned. She looks at Seo-jin and asks if he's done sitting around. Our boy gets to his feet without a word. He crosses the room and kneels next to Yoon. Yoon's eyes flutter open. He tries to speak, but it comes out as a wet cough. Seo-jin tells him to save his strength. Yoon grabs Seo-jin's wrist with a grip that feels like iron. He says there's something Seo-jin needs to know. Right now. No more secrets. No more waiting. Yoon says Hwang Jin-ho isn't just an SSS rank hunter. He cheated. He found something inside a gate 10 years ago. An artifact that isn't supposed to exist. It's called the Heart of the Abyss. Baek Ji-woo stops pacing when she hears those words. She knows that name. She asks Yoon how he knows that name. Yoon says he's been chasing it for 9 years. The heart doesn't just amplify power. It binds the gate's energy directly into a hunter's core. It turns a man into a walking gate. That's how Hwang killed Seo-jin's parents without breaking stride. That's how he built Black Sun out of nothing. He's not the strongest because of talent. He's the strongest because he's wearing the abyss like a second skin. Seo-jin's hands go still on his knees. He asks Yoon if the artifact can be destroyed. Yoon shakes his head. You can't destroy it, but you can cancel it. If someone crafts a counter artifact from the same source material, the abyss always balances itself. That's the only rule it follows. Seo-jin's chest gets hot. Not the fragment, his own heat. He pictures the black gauntlet upstairs, still wrapped in oiled cloth. He pictures the fragment that's been humming like a tuning fork against his hip. He asks Yoon what the source material is. Yoon's eyes go dark. He says it's a metal called void steel, and the last known deposit was locked inside a gate they call the Necropolis of the Fallen. Baek Ji-woo steps forward. She says that gate is a death sentence. It's listed as S rank, but no hunter has ever come out of the inner chambers. They only mapped the entrance. That's it. Seo-jin looks at her. He asks if there's a map of what was mapped. She stares at him for a long second. Then she pulls a data slate out of her coat and tosses it to Hyun-soo. She says she'll give him everything she has, but she's not sending her people into that hole. Seo-jin says he's not asking her to. He turns to Yoon. He says he's going. Yoon tries to sit up. He says Seo-jin isn't ready. He hasn't even recovered from the escape. Our boy just cracks his neck. He says he's been not ready for 3 years. It hasn't stopped him yet. Hyun-soo steps up and says he's coming too. He holds up his scarred wrist like it's a badge. He says he owes Seo-jin his life, and he's tired of running. Seo-jin tells him this isn't a dock job. He might not come back. Hyun-soo shrugs. He asks what the point of surviving is if he doesn't fight back. Our boy looks at him for 3 full heartbeats. Then he nods. Baek Ji-woo exhales like she's just bet her whole guild on a losing hand. She pulls a second data slate from her pack. This one is encrypted. She opens a map of the city and drops a pin on a warehouse in the Eastern Industrial District. She says there's a tunnel there that leads to a pre-collapse underground network. It connects to the Necropolis Gate. She used to run salvage there before she made rank. She'll give him the access codes. And if he survives, he owes her 3 legendary-grade weapons. No questions asked. Seo-jin says he'll make her 4. She doesn't smile, but her eye twitches. That's as close as she gets. Yoon pulls Seo-jin closer. He presses a small, rusted key into Seo-jin's palm. He says it unlocks a storage locker at the East End dockyard. Inside is a set of abyss-resistant armor he never got to use. Seo-jin closes his fingers around the key. He asks Yoon why he kept it. Yoon's jaw tightens. He says it was supposed to be for the day he went back into the gate to fix his mistake. But he never went. Now it's Seo-jin's, so don't waste it. Seo-jin pockets the key. He tells Yoon to stay alive. Yoon nods once. That's the end of the talk. Baek Ji-woo gives Seo-jin a comm unit and a list of 5 safe houses. She says if Black Sun finds them here, she'll burn the warehouse. She means that. Seo-jin thanks her. Then he turns and walks out of the boiler room. Hyun-soo falls in behind him. Outside, the sky is the color of a bruised lip. Dawn is fully here, but the lower city never really gets bright. They head for the Eastern Industrial District on foot, ditching the truck. Too easy to track. Hyun-soo is nervous, talking too much. He asks if Void Steel is even real. He asks if the gate is really as bad as Baek Ji-woo says. He asks if Seo-jin has a plan. Seo-jin doesn't answer. He's counting the sounds behind them. Footsteps, distant engines, the hum of a surveillance drone somewhere above the roofline. They duck into an alley. Our boy presses the fragment into his palm and waits. Nothing comes. They keep moving. The warehouse Baek Ji-woo marked is half-collapsed and rusted red, but the tunnel entrance is still intact. A reinforced steel door behind a false wall of stacked pallets. Seo-jin punches in the access code. The door groans open. Stale air rushes out, smelling of wet stone and old oil. They step inside. The tunnel is narrow, lined with ancient conduit pipes and flickering emergency lights. Hyun-soo asks if this is really a pre-collapse network. Seo-jin says the gates didn't appear overnight. The first wave hit 50 years ago. Some people dug deep instead of building tall. Looks like they ran out of time. They walk for 20 minutes. The emergency lights die after the first 10, so Seo-jin pulls a glow stick from his pouch and shakes it alive. Green light slashes across the wall. The tunnel widens into a wide junction, and then they see it. The gate. It's embedded in the far wall like a wound that can't close. 10 meters tall, black and purple. The edges ripple with the same shimmer that's on the fragment. Hyun-soo stops walking. He asks if this is really a good idea. Seo-jin doesn't answer. He just steps through, and the world unravels. The gate spits them out into a landscape of bones. Not scattered, layered. The ground is fused out of crushed armor and rib cages. The sky is a ceiling of black stone, miles high, with no light source. Somehow, everything glows faint purple. The air hits Seo-jin's lungs like a mouthful of broken glass. It's toxic. Instantly, his eyes sting, and his throat starts to close. Hyun-soo drops to one knee, gagging. Seo-jin yanks off his jacket. He rips the lining out, then tears the sleeve off a corpse's uniform. Leather. Charcoal. The heat in his chest flares up. He presses his palms together. The materials fuse. 3 seconds. He's holding 2 crude breathing masks. They're ugly. They stink like rot. They work. He shoves one at Hyun-soo and puts the other on. Breathe in, filter, breathe out, survive. The gate behind them isn't a gate anymore. It's a solid wall of rock. They're trapped until they find the exit point. That's how these deep gates work. Seo-jin pulls the glowing purple dagger. No, wait. He has only the fragment and the gauntlet? He has no dagger. He'll need something. He pulls out the gauntlet from his pack and straps it onto his left forearm. The purple gem pulses in sync with his breathing. He tells Hyun-soo to stay close. And don't touch anything metal. Hyun-soo looks around at the field of corpses, half-buried in rusted weapons. He asks if that's going to be a problem. Seo-jin gestures at the ground. Everything here died fighting something. Whatever killed them is still here. They move. The path underfoot crunches with every step. Skulls. Sword hilts, the rib cage of something that wasn't human. The air gets heavier the deeper they go. Seo-jin starts cataloging the trash around him. Fragments of old shields. A cracked helmet with traces of old enchantment still humming. Bone shafts that could be sharpened into spears. Everything here is a material. Hyun-soo keeps his head on a swivel. Up ahead, the corpse field gives way to a massive structure. A black spire. It rises out of the bones like a tooth from a jaw. The necropolis proper. Seo-jin knows the void steel is in there. The map from Baek Ji-woo ends here. From this point on, they're blind. Guess what? Our boy doesn't slow down. Guess what? Our boy doesn't slow down. Ground crunches underfoot like hollow bird bones. Hyun-soo's breathing goes fast and shallow. He mutters that this place is wrong. Seo-jin doesn't answer. He's scanning the walls for movement. The spire doorway is a jagged mouth of black stone. They step through. Inside, the air turns still and colder. The purple glow fades into a deeper darkness. His glow stick barely cuts 10 feet. The corridor is lined with alcoves. In each alcove, a skeleton stands. Not lying down, standing, like soldiers waiting for a command. Hyun-soo whispers that they should go back. Too late, a rattling starts. The skeletons turn their heads. Eye sockets flare with purple light. They aren't dead. Seo-jin shoves Hyun-soo forward. He yells to move. The first skeleton lunges with a rusted sword raised. Seo-jin ducks under the swing. He kicks the thing's knee. Bone shatters. The skeleton crumples, but it doesn't stop. Claws at his ankle with finger bones. Seo-jin stomps the skull. Purple light goes out. More are coming. Dozens. They pour from the alcoves like water. Our boy grabs a femur from the floor. It's old, brittle, useless. But he's got nothing else. He presses the femur against a broken shield rim. Heat flares in his chest. The bone fuses with the metal. A jagged throwing spear. He hurls it. The spear punches through 3 skeletons at once. They collapse into piles of dust. Hyun-soo snatches a rib bone and swings it. It snaps on impact. Seo-jin yells to find something metal. Hyun-soo scrambles. Our boy crafts another spear. Then another. Each throw clears a path. His breath gets heavy. The heat in his chest dips lower. He's down to embers already. Something huge moves deeper in the corridor. A hulking skeleton, twice the size of the others. It carries a massive axe made of fused vertebrae. Seo-jin ducks behind a fallen pillar. Hyun-soo finds a rusted short sword and hands it over. Seo-jin presses it against the stone floor. He fuses it with rock dust and a shard of bone. The blade extends and sharpens. A crude longsword. The giant skeleton swings. The axe shears through the pillar like paper. Seo-jin rolls. He comes up and drives the longsword into the giant's knee joint. The bone cracks. The giant stumbles. Seo-jin leaps onto its back, grabs the axe handle, and yanks. With a snap, he wrenches the axe free. He slams it into the giant's skull. Purple light explodes outward. The giant collapses in a heap. The remaining skeletons stop. They stare. Then they retreat into the shadows. Hyun-soo gasps that they're running. Seo-jin says no, they're hurting. Don't follow. He drops the axe. Too heavy to carry far. Press deeper into the spire. The corridor opens into a vast chamber. The ceiling is lost in darkness. In the center, a lake of black liquid. No, not liquid, metal. Molten abyssium. It glows faintly purple, like a pool of dying stars. Standing in the middle of it is a skeleton the size of a building. It has no legs, rooted into the metal pool like a tree. 4 arms, each holding a weapon. A sword, a hammer, a spear, a chain. Empty eye sockets, but the purple glow is blinding. That's the Guardian. Hyun-soo whispers that thing isn't killable. Seo-jin clenches his fists. He's out of materials here except the floor and his own gear. He stamps his foot. The stone is solid. No cracks. He looks at the gauntlet on his arm. The purple gem is pulsing fast now, like it's hungry. He tells Hyun-soo to stay near the entrance. If it turns, run. Hyun-soo nods, terrified. Seo-jin walks toward the molten metal. The Guardian's head turns. A sound like grinding boulders. It speaks. Not words. A feeling. Ancient rage. Seo-jin feels his ribs vibrate. He doesn't stop. He kneels by the edge of the pool. The abyssium is hot but not burning. His fragment in his pouch is screaming. No, singing. He pulls it out. The black shard flares. The Guardian raises its sword arm. Hyun-soo screams his name. Seo-jin presses the fragment into the pool. Nothing happens for 1 heartbeat. Then a shockwave. The metal ripples. The guardian swings. Seo-jin rolls sideways as the sword slams into the stone, carving a trench. He scrambles backwards. The guardian's chain arm whips toward him. He ducks, but the chain wraps around his ankle. He's yanked off his feet, dragged across the floor toward the pool. Hyun-soo throws a rock. It bounces off the skeleton's skull. The guardian doesn't care. But it gives Seo-jin a second. He grabs the chain. It's made of fused spine, old and brittle. He focuses. Heat. The chain cracks and crumbles. He lands hard on the stone. The guardian roars. His hammer arm comes down. Seo-jin rolls again. The hammer strikes the pool. Molten abyssium splashes upward. Droplets hit his sleeve and chew through the fabric like acid. He rips the jacket off. The gauntlet is smoking. Hyun-soo shouts that the arms are too many. Our boy realizes he can't fight this head-on. He tells Hyun-soo to get ready to run for the far side. There's a ledge there with raw abyssium veins in the wall. That's the real prize. He needs to blind the guardian. He spots minerals in the debris. Chunks of broken stalactite, quartz, something that fizzes when it touches the air. He scoops up a handful. Pressing them together, heat floods his chest. A sharp grinding pain in his ribs. He ignores it. The materials fuse into a rough sphere the size of a fist, cracked and humming. A makeshift light bomb. He hurls it at the guardian's face. The sphere detonates. White light floods the chamber. The guardian shrieks. A sound that shoves through Seo-jin's skull. The creature stumbles, blinded. Seo-jin yells now. They sprint. Hyun-soo bolts for the ledge. Seo-jin follows, but the guardian's spear arm stabs blindly. It catches Seo-jin's side, gouging a line across his ribs. He stumbles but keeps running. They reach the ledge. The wall is raw stone, threaded with glowing purple veins. Abyssium ore. Seo-jin pulls out his folding knife and starts cutting a chunk. The wall resists, hard as diamond. He lets the heat flow through the blade. It softens. He cuts out a lump the size of his fist. Hot, humming with power. The guardian is recovering, the white light fading. Time to go. But the exit is back the way they came, past the guardian. Hyun-soo points up. There's a fissure in the ceiling, collapsed rubble leading up. An escape route if they can climb. Seo-jin pockets the abyssium. He fuses 2 rock fragments into climbing pitons, and he pounds them into the wall as he ascends. Hyun-soo follows, limbs shaking. Below, the guardian smashes its hammer into the wall. The entire chamber shudders. Stone cracks. The gate is destabilizing. Seo-jin reaches the fissure. He pulls Hyun-soo up into a narrow tunnel. It slopes upward. They crawl through darkness. The air gets thinner, colder. Behind them, the chamber collapses. A roar shakes the earth, then silence. They crawl for what feels like an hour. Finally, light. Not sunlight. A crack of cloudy gray. They squeeze through. They're in the lower city, in some crumbling drainage culvert. The gate is gone. They made it. Seo-jin sits against the concrete wall. Blood soaks through his shirt. His side is a mess. Hyun-soo ties a strip of his own shirt around it. Seo-jin's vision is blurring, but he clenches the abyssium lump in his palm. Got it. They need medical help. Hyun-soo says he knows where they are, close to the Twilight Guild's second safe house. He helps Seo-jin stand. They limp through back alleys. Eventually, they reach a boarded-up pharmacy. Hyun-soo knocks in a pattern. The door opens. A scar-faced woman lets them in. It's one of Baek Ji-woo's contacts. She looks at Seo-jin's wound and curses. She says Baek Ji-woo's been sending signals. Black Sun is moving, full force. They're hitting Twilight's front operations. It's open war. She patches Seo-jin up with field suture and a stimulant. His hands are shaking. His heat is cold. But he tucks the abyssium into his pouch, next to the fragment. The 2 objects hum together. Hyun-soo asks if he can even stand. Seo-jin stands. He tells the woman to get him a radio. It's time to build something that can end this. Hyun-soo drags Jeonmin-kyu by the collar toward the mill. Our boy doesn't even look at him. He's already walking toward the workshop bench. The textile mill's basement is cold and damp, but it's got enough scrap to work with. Seo-jin sets the abyssium lump on the steel table. The thing hums so loud the air around it wobbles. Hyun-soo asks what he's planning. Seo-jin doesn't answer. He pulls out the black fragment and sets it beside the abyssium. The 2 objects start singing to each other, a frequency that makes Hyun-soo's teeth ache. Our boy tells him to stand back. Then he closes his eyes and lets the heat rise in his chest. It's weak at first, barely a flicker. He pushes harder and something inside him cracks. The heat surges and his hands start glowing. He grabs the abyssium and the fragment together. The world whites out for a second. When his vision clears, the two materials are fusing, not melting, weaving. Threads of black metal and purple light braiding into something new. A small ring the size of a coin. It pulses once. Then it goes still. Seo-jin drops it on the table and nearly collapses. Hyun-soo catches him. His hands are shaking worse than before. The wound in his side is bleeding through the bandages again. Hyun-soo tells him he needs to rest. Our boy shakes his head. He says the ring is just the core. The counter artifact needs a housing. Something stable enough to channel that much power. He looks around the basement. Rusted pipes. Broken machinery. Old textile rollers caked in grease. It's enough. He works for the next 4 hours straight. His vision keeps blurring. Every time he blinks, the heat in his chest dips lower. But he doesn't stop. He pulls apart a rusted pressure valve. The brass fittings still have some integrity. He fuses them into a circular casing, small enough to hold in one hand. Rough on the outside, but perfectly smooth inside. Then he starts layering. Abyssium threads he peeled from the core. Scraps of gate stabilization wire from Twilight's stores. Even a sliver of the gauntlet's gem he chipped off with the folding knife. Each layer drains him harder. By the time he's done, his shirt is soaked through. His face is gray. But the device sits on the table complete. A flat disc about the size of a fist. Dark metal with faint purple veins. The ring core is embedded in the center. It pulses slow and steady, like a heartbeat. Hyun-soo stares at it. He asks if it's ready. Seo-jin says, almost. He needs to test it. Before he can move, the scar-faced woman pounds on the basement door. She yells that something's happening outside. Black Sun is here. Hyun-soo bolts up the stairs. Seo-jin shoves the disc into his pouch and follows. He gets to the ground floor and hears it. Explosions. Close ones. The woman is at the window, pointing toward the Twilight safe house across the district. Smoke is rising. Not just one plume. 5 or 6. Seo-jin's radio crackles. Baek Ji-woo's voice comes through. She says Black Sun hit 3 Twilight outposts in the last 10 minutes. Coordinated strikes. She's pulling everyone back to the main base. Seo-jin grabs the radio and asks how many. She says at least 40 hunters, maybe more. And they're not just hitting Twilight. They're hitting anyone who ever traded with them. Carriers, shopkeepers, families. Seo-jin's jaw tightens. He asks where she is. She says the main base is under attack right now. Oh Dae-hyun is leading it personally. The line cuts to static. Our boy doesn't hesitate. He tells Hyun-soo to get Yoon to a medic. The scar-faced woman knows a safe route through the sewers. Then he's out the door. He runs through the alleyways toward Twilight's base. The streets are chaos. Civilians running. Smoke choking the air. A Black Sun hunter spots him and charges. Seo-jin doesn't slow down. He grabs a broken bottle from the ground. Heat flashes through his fingers. The glass warps into a thin spike. He throws it. The spike catches the hunter in the shoulder. The guy drops screaming. Seo-jin keeps running. He reaches Twilight Street and stops cold. The base is a war zone. Twilight hunters are fighting in the open. Black Sun forces are pressing them back. Bodies on both sides. Seo-jin spots Baek Ji-woo near the entrance. She's holding her own. 2 Black Sun hunters are already down at her feet, but she's bleeding from a gash on her forehead. More enemies are pushing through. He needs to buy her time. He scans the street. Upturned furniture from a collapsed cafe. Shattered window frames. A delivery truck with its back doors blown off. Office equipment scattered across the pavement. It's all material. He moves. His hands grab everything in reach. Chairs become barricades. He fuses the wood with metal scraps. Not pretty, but solid. Each one takes seconds. The heat in his chest is screaming now. He ignores it. A desk becomes a reinforced shield wall. Filing cabinets get welded into a choke point. Loose cables from the truck become trip lines. He's breathing hard. His vision is going gray at the edges again. But the barricades hold. Black Sun hunters hit the first line and stumble. Twilight fighters regroup behind the cover. Baek Ji-woo shouts orders. Her people start pushing back. Then a Black Sun hunter vaults the barricade. Big guy, B rank at least. He swings an axe at Seo-jin. Our boy ducks and grabs the nearest object. A shattered office speaker. Wires hanging out of it. He jumps back and focuses. The heat surges one more time. The speaker's components rearrange. Magnet. Coil. Power cell from a broken radio nearby. They fuse into a compact device. He slams his palm against the side. A shriek rips through the air. High frequency. Painful. The axe guy claps his hands over his ears. Every black sun hunter within 20 meters staggers. Seo-jin points the speaker toward the enemy line. The sound bends. Focused. Black sun's formation breaks. Hunters are stumbling. Some are puking. Others are bleeding from their ears. Baek Ji-woo sees the opening. She leads a charge. Twilight hunters surge forward. They cut through the disoriented attackers hard and fast. Seo-jin keeps the device running. The heat in his chest is almost gone now, just embers. His knees buckle, but he locks them. The speaker cracks in his hands. The coil is burning out. Then the ground shakes. Shockwave throws Seo-jin backwards. He hits the pavement hard. The speaker shatters. He looks up. Oh Dae-hyun is walking through the smoke. S-rank. His aura alone is crushing the barricades. Wood splinters. Metal bends. He's not even trying. Baek Ji-woo shouts for everyone to fall back. Oh Dae-hyun's eyes lock onto Seo-jin. He says the little crafter has been busy. He walks toward him. Slow. Inevitable. Seo-jin scrambles to his feet. His body is screaming. His hands are numb. But he reaches for the last piece of scrap near him, a broken riot shield from a fallen Twilight Guard. Polycarbonate. Cracked but not shattered. He grabs it and pushes every last ember of heat into it. The shield warps. The plastic hardens. Metal reinforcement from a broken pipe fuses into the frame. It won't stop an S-rank. But maybe it'll buy him a second. Oh Dae-hyun swings. No warning. Just a backhand that moves faster than it should. Seo-jin raises the shield. The impact hits like a truck. The shield holds for half a heartbeat. Then it shatters. Seo-jin is thrown 10 feet backwards. He skids across the pavement. His pouch tears open. The disc spills out. Oh Dae-hyun stops. He looks at the disc. His eyes narrow. He asks what that is. Seo-jin doesn't answer. He's too busy trying to breathe. His ribs are on fire, probably cracked again. Oh Dae-hyun reaches for the disc. A blade cuts through the air between them. Baek Ji-woo. She steps in front of Seo-jin. Her sword is drawn. She tells Oh Dae-hyun to back off. He smiles. He says she's been a thorn in Black Sun's side for too long. She says she's about to be a sword in his. They clash. Shockwave cracks the ground. Seo-jin drags himself toward the disc. His fingers close around it. The thing pulses warm against his palm. Baek Ji-woo is holding her own. She's fast. Precise. But Oh Dae-hyun is stronger. Every exchange pushes her back. Seo-jin forces himself upright. He yells her name. She glances back. He throws the disc. She catches it one-handed. He tells her to press the core. She does. The disc activates. A wave of purple light erupts from it. It slams into Oh Dae-hyun. Not a physical blast, something else. His aura flickers. His movements slow. The disc is draining his power. Not much, but enough. Baek Ji-woo doesn't waste the opening. She drives forward. Her sword finds his shoulder, then his thigh, then his weapon hand. Oh Dae-hyun drops his blade. He stumbles back, bleeding. His aura is guttering like a candle in wind. He looks at the disc, then at Seo-jin. He says Hwang Jin-ho was right about him. Then he retreats. Black Sun hunters grab him and pull back. The attack breaks. Twilight holds. Baek Ji-woo sinks to one knee. The disc is still humming in her hand. She stares at it. She asks what the hell it is. Seo-jin limps over. He says it's not finished yet, but it's close. She hands it back to him. She says to finish it fast. Black Sun won't wait long. Our boy nods. His body feels like it's made of broken glass. But he walks back toward the mill. The disc is heavy in his hand. The core is pulsing faster now, almost ready. He gets back to the basement and Hyun-soo is waiting. Yoon is on a cot in the corner, patched up, pale but alive. Seo-jin asks if he's stable. Hyun-soo says the medic got the bleeding stopped, but he needs rest. Seo-jin walks to the workbench. He sets the disc down. The final component is the hardest part. The counter artifact needs a trigger. Something tied directly to Hwang Jin-ho's power source. The heart of the abyss. He has the fragment. He has the abyssium. He has the core. But the connection is still missing. He stares at the disc. His chest is hollow. The heat is almost gone, barely a spark. He puts his hands on the disc anyway. He pushes. The spark catches. Then it roars. He pours everything he has into the device. The ring core spins inside the casing. The purple veins flare bright. The disc lifts off the table, floating. Seo-jin's vision goes completely white. He feels something snap inside him. Not a bone, something deeper. The heat burns out entirely. He drops. Hyun-soo screams his name. The disc falls beside him, smoking, pulsing, finished. Seo-jin's eyes are closed. His breathing is shallow. His skin is burning hot. Fever hot. Hyun-soo rolls him onto his back. Blood is seeping from Seo-jin's nose. His lips are cracked. Hyun-soo shouts for the medic. The scar-faced woman rushes in. She checks his pulse. Her face goes tight. She says his body is shutting down. Hyun-soo asks if he's dying. She doesn't answer. Hours pass. Seo-jin drifts in and out. Fever dreams. Fragments of the vision again. The man screaming in front of the gate. The sky splitting open. And something new. A voice. Deep and ancient. It's coming from the disc. It's calling him. He wakes with a gasp. His body is wrecked. Every muscle screams when he moves. But he sits up. Hyun-soo is asleep in a chair nearby. The disc is on the table, pulsing slow and steady. Seo-jin reaches for it. His fingers close around the casing. The voice stops. The disc feels alive in his hand, ready. He stands up. His legs nearly give out. He steadies himself on the table. Hyun-soo wakes up and stares. He asks what he's doing. Seo-jin says he's going to end this. Hyun-soo says he can barely stand. Seo-jin looks at him. He says he doesn't need to stand. He just needs to get close enough. Hyun-soo asks, close enough to what? Seo-jin doesn't answer. He tucks the disc into his belt. The heat in his chest is gone, but he doesn't need it anymore. The disc is the key. He walks out of the basement. The streets are empty. Seo-jin walks through the lower district alone. His boots scrape the cracked asphalt. Every step sends a dull ache through his ribs. The disc is warm against his hip. It pulses like a second heartbeat now. Stronger. Our boy doesn't look back at the mill. He doesn't stop. He doesn't rest. He knows where Hwang Jin-ho is. The northern district. The old cathedral. That's where the ritual is happening. Where the heart of the abyss is being fed. Seo-jin's hands are still shaking. His vision is blurry at the edges. Doesn't matter. He limps past a collapsed overpass. A street lamp flickers above him. Purple light pulses under his jacket. The city is too quiet tonight. No patrols. No hunters. No carriers hauling salvage. Just silence. And the hum of the disc getting louder with every block. He reaches the cathedral district around midnight. The building looms ahead. Black spires. Stained glass glowing red from inside. 2 guards stand at the front gate. B rank. Armed with gate steel blades that shimmer in the dark. Seo-jin doesn't slow down. He walks straight toward them. One guard spots him and laughs. He asks what a dead man is doing walking into Black Sun territory. The other guard draws his sword. He tells the carrier to turn around before he loses the leg. Seo-jin pulls the disc from his belt. It flares bright. Purple light washes over the street. Both guards freeze. Their auras flicker, weaken. He tells them to move, or he drains them dry where they stand. The guards glance at each other, then at the disc. Then they step aside. Smart choice. Our boy walks through the gate and into the cathedral. Inside, the air is thick, heavy, like breathing through wet wool. The nave is massive. Stone pillars stretch up into darkness. Candles burn in black iron sconces along the walls. And at the center of it all, Hwang Jin-ho. He stands on a raised dais with his back to the door. His hands are raised. Purple energy pours from his chest into something floating above him. The heart of the abyss. Black crystal the size of a human skull, spinning slowly in the air. Veins of purple light pulse through it like blood through a heart. It's beautiful. And it's wrong. Seo-jin's disc screams. The fragment in his pouch vibrates so hard it burns his skin. Hwang Jin-ho doesn't turn around, but he speaks. He says he was wondering when the little crafter would arrive. He says he's been watching Seo-jin for a long time, longer than the boy knows. Seo-jin asks if he killed his parents. Just like that. No preamble, no speech. Hwang Jin-ho lowers his hands. The heart keeps spinning above him. He turns around. The man is tall. Sharp features, silver hair slicked back. eyes that glow faintly purple. He smiles. It doesn't reach his eyes. He says of course he killed them. He says it like it's nothing, like stepping on an ant. He says the Sung-Soo fissure wasn't a collapse. It was a harvest. Seo-jin's hands clench into fists. His nails bite into his palms. Blood drips between his fingers. Hwang Jin-ho keeps talking. He says the Kang family had a treasure, an artifact that could amplify any crafter's power 1,000-fold. He says Seo-jin's father refused to hand it over, so he opened a gate inside their home. He says Seo-jin's mother shielded the boy with her own body. That's the only reason he survived. Hwang Jin-ho tilts his head. He says he thought the boy died too. Imagine his surprise when a carrier started crafting legendary items from trash. He says it's poetic. The son inherited the father's stubbornness and his talent. He asks if Seo-jin wants to know what the treasure was. He points at the fragment in Seo-jin's pouch, the one that hums and pulses and feels like a target. He says that sliver came from the heart itself, the only piece that escaped when he harvested the rest. Seo-jin's blood runs cold. The fragment isn't just a tool, it's a piece of the weapon that killed his parents. Hwang Jin-ho spreads his arms wide. He says this is fate. The boy brought the final piece back to him. Seo-jin pulls the disc from his belt. It's burning bright now. The purple veins are white hot. He says Hwang Jin-ho is wrong. He didn't bring it back for him. He brought it to end him. He slams his palm against the disc's core. The device activates with a scream that shatters every stained glass window in the cathedral. Purple light erupts from the disc in a wave that slams into the heart. The black crystal shudders. Cracks spiderweb across its surface. Hwang Jin-ho's eyes go wide. He asks what that is. Seo-jin says it's a counter-artifact, tuned to exactly one frequency, the heart's frequency. The cracks spread faster. The heart shrieks like a living thing. Pieces of it start falling away. Hwang Jin-ho's aura gutters. His power is draining. The ritual is collapsing. He screams. It's a sound of pure rage, kind of sound a man makes when he watches 20 years of work shatter in front of him. Then the heart of the abyss explodes. Purple light floods the cathedral. Seo-jin is thrown backward into a pillar. When the light fades, Hwang Jin-ho is on his knees. The heart is gone. Dust and black crystal fragments litter the floor. But he's not dead. He's still breathing. His aura is weak, but his body is SSS rank. He stands up, slowly. His eyes are wild now, desperate. He draws a sword from his waist. It's legendary grade. Black blade that drinks the light around it. He says it doesn't matter. He can still kill a crippled carrier with his bare hands. He lunges. Faster than Seo-jin can track. Our boy throws himself sideways. The blade misses his throat by a finger's width and carves a trench into the stone pillar behind him. Seo-jin hits the ground hard. His cracked ribs scream. His vision swims. But his hands are already moving. He grabs a piece of shattered stained glass, a length of fallen candle chain, a chunk of the broken heart crystal. The heat in his chest is gone. Burned out completely. Doesn't stop him. He forces his hands together anyway, pushes past the emptiness, reaches deeper than he's ever reached. Something cracks inside him. Not bone, not muscle. Something deeper. A wall he didn't know was there. And something answers. The fragment in his pouch melts into his palm. The broken heart crystal fuses with the glass and the chain. In 3 seconds, he's holding a sword. Black blade. Glass edge that glows purple. Chain wrapped around the hilt. It's ugly. Crude. Barely balanced. But it's his. And it's hungry. Hwang Jin-ho stares at it. He says that's impossible. The boy has no mana left. Seo-jin doesn't answer. He swings. The blade catches Hwang Jin-ho's legendary sword mid-strike. Sparks shower across the cathedral floor. They clash again. And again. Seo-jin is slower, weaker. Every block sends agony through his arms. But the counter-artifact is still active. Still pulsing on the floor where he dropped it. Still draining whatever power Hwang Jin-ho has left. Hwang Jin-ho's strikes are getting slower too. His legendary blade is flickering. The heart's destruction is eating him from the inside. Seo-jin sees an opening. He doesn't hesitate. He drops the sword. Grabs a fallen electrical cable from a shattered chandelier. The copper wiring inside is still live. His hands move on instinct. The cable wraps around a chunk of the broken heart crystal. Fuses into a weighted hook. He throws it at Hwang Jin-ho's legs. The cable whips around his ankles. The crystal shard bites into his calf. Hwang Jin-ho roars. He tries to slash the cable, but the sword's edge has dulled. His power is too weak. Seo-jin yanks the cable. Hwang Jin-ho crashes onto his back. The legendary sword skitters across the floor. Our boy is on him before he can breathe. One knee on his chest, the crafted sword pressed against his throat. Hwang Jin-ho laughs. Blood bubbles between his teeth. He asks if Seo-jin thinks this matters, if he thinks killing one man changes anything. He says the abyss is eternal. There will always be another gate, another monster, another man willing to use it. Seo-jin looks him in the eye. He says Hwang Jin-ho is right. The abyss doesn't end, but Black Sun does. Tonight, he drives the sword through Hwang Jin-ho's throat. The glass edge parts flesh and bone like it's nothing. The blade comes out the back of his neck and buries itself in the stone floor. The wounds are bad. 3 cracked ribs, a gash across his side that's still seeping blood. Burns on both palms from the fragment melting into his skin. And something worse underneath. His veins are glowing. Not bright, just a faint purple shimmer under the skin, like light through frosted glass. The medic freezes and stares at it. Baek Ji-woo tells her to move. She snaps out of it and gets to work. They pump him full of stabilizers and mana suppressants. His body fights everything they give him. The fever spikes so high, the thermometer errors out. For 6 hours, he's suspended between life and whatever comes after. Baek Ji-woo doesn't leave the room. She sits in a plastic chair with her sword across her knees. Her expression says anyone who tries to enter is going to lose a hand. Yoon arrives at dawn. He's limping, and his side is wrapped in bandages thick enough to stop a knife. Hyun-soo is with him carrying a bag of supplies from the mill. They're both covered in road dust and dried blood. Yoon asks if he's alive. Baek Ji-woo just nods toward the bed. Seo-jin is still unconscious, but his breathing has steadied. The purple glow in his veins faded around 4 in the morning. The medic says his mana channels are fried. Not permanently damaged, but burned raw like an overworked muscle. She's never seen anything like it. Yoon pulls up a chair next to Baek Ji-woo. Neither of them speaks for a long time. Around noon, Seo-jin's eyes open. He stares at the ceiling for 5 full seconds before he realizes he's alive. His first word is Hwang Jin-ho's name. Baek Ji-woo leans forward and tells him the bastard is dead. She says it flat like a fact. Seo-jin closes his eyes again and exhales. Yoon puts a hand on his shoulder and tells him to rest. He says the city is still standing because of him. Hyun-soo is crying quietly in the corner. He tries to hide it, but his shoulders are shaking. Seo-jin doesn't notice. He's already unconscious again. 2 days pass in a blur of intravenous drips and checked vitals. The scar-faced medic changes his bandages every 4 hours. She mutters under her breath about insane carriers who don't know when to stop. But she's gentle with the wounds. Baek Ji-woo brings reports. Black Sun is in chaos. Hwang Jin-ho's death left a power vacuum the size of a gate crater. Mid-rank officers are fighting each other for scraps. Oh Dae-hyun has gone to ground somewhere in the lower districts. No one's seen him since he crawled out of Twilight's base. The other guilds are circling like sharks. The Hunter Association issued a statement calling it an internal matter. Translation: they're not getting involved. Yoon tells Seo-jin all of this while he's propped up on pillows eating bland hospital porridge. Seo-jin listens without reacting. His hands are wrapped in gauze to the wrists. He can't feel the heat in his chest anymore. It's not gone, just buried under a layer of exhaustion, so deep it might as well be. He asks about the counter artifact. Baek Ji-woo pulls the disc from her coat. The core is cracked but still glowing faint purple. She hands it to him. He turns it over in his bandaged fingers. The pulse is weaker now, slower, like a heartbeat winding down. He tucks it under his pillow and closes his eyes. Baek Ji-woo doesn't ask for it back. On the 3rd day, he can stand. On the 4th, he can walk to the window and look out at the city. The skyline is bruised. 3 buildings in the financial district are just gone, collapsed during the Black Sun raids. Smoke still rises from a warehouse fire in the docklands. But the streets are moving again. Carriers haul salvage. Hunters patrol in mixed guild squads. The city is wounded, but alive. Seo-jin watches it all with an expression no one can read. Hyun-soo brings him real food from a street vendor. Fried dough and spicy sauce wrapped in paper. He says the vendor recognized him from the news and refused to take money. Seo-jin asks what news. Hyun-soo pulls out his phone and shows him. The video has 17 million views. It's grainy footage from a security camera across the street from the cathedral. You can't see the fight, but you can see Seo-jin walk out the front doors. blood-soaked and hollow-eyed and still dripping. You can see the hunter drop his sword and run. The caption reads, "The Trash Crafter." Seo-jin stares at it for a long time. Then he hands the phone back and takes a bite of fried dough. He says they got the name wrong. He's not a crafter, he's a carrier. Always has been. On the 5th day, the scar-faced medic clears him for discharge. Light activity only. No crafting. No combat. No heroics. She says it like she already knows he's going to ignore every word. Seo-jin promises nothing. He walks out of Twilight's medical wing with Yoon on one side and Hyun-soo on the other. Baek Ji-woo is waiting in the main hall. She tells him the guild leaders want to meet. All of them. Even the ones who sat neutral while Black Sun tightened its grip on the city. They want to know who the trash crafter is. They want to know what he can do. And they want to know whose side he's on. Seo-jin asks what she told them. She says she told them nothing. She says that's his call. A horn sounds outside. Not a truck horn, something deeper. Something that vibrates in the chest and makes the windows hum. Baek Ji-woo's face changes instantly. She's already moving before the second horn blast hits. The sound is coming from the city center, from the Hunter Association's main stronghold. Yoon grabs Seo-jin's arm and pulls him toward the door. They step outside and look up. The sky above the financial district is splitting. A crack runs right through the middle of the blue, like someone dragged a knife across a painting. Purple light bleeds through the seam. The same purple light that pulsed in Seo-jin's fragment. The same purple light that died in Hwang Jin-ho's eyes. And then the crack widens. The gate opens. It's not like the others. Not a fissure in a subway tunnel or a rift in an abandoned warehouse. This one is above the skyline. Massive. Easily 10 times the size of the biggest gate on record. The shape of something dark moves behind the purple membrane. Baek Ji-woo is already shouting orders. Every hunter in sight is sprinting for the armory. The horn keeps blaring. Seo-jin stands frozen on the steps. Yoon's grip on his arm tightens. He says they need to go. Now. Seo-jin doesn't move. He's watching the gate, watching the shape behind it resolve into something with too many limbs and too many eyes. The first thing through the gate is a leg. It's as thick as a city bus and covered in plates of chitin that gleam like oil on water. The second thing through is a shriek. It shatters every window on the block and sends people to their knees clutching their ears. Then the rest of the monster comes through. It's bigger than any creature ever recorded. Bigger than the A-rank abomination that started all of this. Its body is a nightmare of segmented armor and pulsing tissue. Hundreds of eyes ring its head in concentric circles. They blink out of sync in a pattern that makes the brain hurt just to watch. The monster lands in the middle of the financial district. 3 skyscrapers crumble on impact. Dust and debris blast outward in a wave that rolls for 6 blocks. Alarms and sirens and screaming fill the air like a second atmosphere. Seo-jin is still standing on the steps. His bandaged hands are clenched into fists. He can feel the heat flickering somewhere deep in his chest. Weak. Barely there. But awake. Baek Ji-woo is back in full combat gear, with a squad of Twilight's best hunters behind her. She tells Seo-jin to stay put. She says he's done enough. She says this one is hers. He looks at her. Then he looks at the monster. It's rampaging through Hunter Square now. Hunters from every guild are throwing everything they have at it. Fire and lightning and shards of conjured ice. None of it leaves a scratch. The monster swats a building with one limb, and the whole structure folds like wet cardboard. Seo-jin says he can't stay put. He says he can feel it. The gate. The monster. It's connected to him. To the fragment. To whatever woke up inside him when he killed Hwang Jin-ho. Yoon tries to argue. Seo-jin is already walking. He limps down the steps and into the street. His bandages are unwinding from his hands as he moves. The fabric falls away to reveal the burns on his palms. They're already healing. The skin is raw and pink, but the purple veins are gone. In their place is something else. A faint metallic sheen, just under the surface like liquid mercury waiting to rise. Jeep screeches to a halt beside him. Hyun-soo is in the driver's seat. He says he figured Seo-jin wouldn't listen. Seo-jin gets in without a word. They tear through the city toward the monster. Streets are choked with debris and abandoned vehicles. Hyun-soo drives on sidewalks and through alleys. He's shaking, but his hands are steady on the wheel. The monster roars again. The sound is close enough to feel in the teeth. They round a corner, and there it is. Looming over the burning wreckage of Hunter Square, tentacles whip from its flanks and smash through buildings like they're paper. The hunters on the ground are in full retreat. Even the A-ranks are pulling back. Nothing is working. Seo-jin gets out of the Jeep. He's still in his hospital clothes, still bandaged around the ribs, still swaying on his feet. But his eyes are fixed on the monster. He walks toward it. Hyun-soo shouts after him. Seo-jin doesn't turn around. He passes a collapsed squad of Crimson Fang hunters, dragging their wounded leader. He passes a line of police vehicles with guns blazing uselessly against the chitin. He passes a woman kneeling in the rubble, screaming a name over and over. And he keeps walking. There's a destroyed military truck tipped on its side ahead of him. The armor plating is shredded. The engine block is cracked open like an egg. Seo-jin puts his hands on the wreckage. The heat surges. It's not strong. Nowhere near what it was before. But it's enough. The metal begins to warp. He pulls a shard of armor plating from the truck's side. Long. Curved. Already sharp along one edge where an attack sheared it clean. He doesn't need to change much. Just sharpen it. Balance it. Make it a spear. The heat flows through his palms and into the metal. His vision swims. His knees nearly buckle. But the spear takes shape. Rough and ugly and barely straight. 10 feet of blackened armor steel with a tip like a glass shard. He plants the butt of it on the pavement and leans on it like a walking stick. The monster's eyes find him. All of them. Hundreds of pupils contracting at once. It can feel the fragment inside him. Feel the thing that used to be a piece of its own gate's heart. It shrieks and charges. Seo-jin lifts the spear. His arms are shaking. His ribs are screaming. His heart is beating so hard he can hear it in his own ears. But he doesn't run. The monster barrels toward him, smashing cars and street lamps and pavement with every step. 200 meters. 100. 50. And then Seo-jin moves. He doesn't throw the spear. He lunges. The spear drives upward into the joint between two armor plates. The tip punches through flesh and sinks to the haft. The monster screams. Not a shriek, a scream. It convulses backward and rips the spear out of Seo-jin's hands. He hits the pavement and rolls. The monster is thrashing. The spear is still lodged in its side. Black ichor sprays from the wound like oil from a cracked pipe. Seo-jin pushes himself up on his elbows. His vision is doubling. His hands are empty. But the wound in the monster's side is already closing. The flesh knits itself back together in seconds. The spear dissolves inside it. The monster turns. Its eyes find Seo-jin again. And this time, there's rage in them. Real rage. It's not just a beast anymore. It's angry. It's been wounded by a thing that shouldn't exist, and it wants him dead. Seo-jin gets to his feet. He's empty-handed, exhausted, bleeding through his bandages. But he's smiling, because now he knows. The gate monster can be hurt. It can heal. But it can bleed. And if it can bleed, he can kill it. He just needs more metal. He just needs more metal. But his body is done. His legs buckle, and he goes down hard on one knee. The pavement cracks under the impact. His hands are empty and shaking so bad he can barely lift them. The monster is already turning. Its wounds have closed completely. No scar, no ichor, just solid chitin and seething rage in those concentric rings of eyes. Seo-jin pushes up, but his arms give out, and he nearly face plants into the rubble. Guess what happens next? The monster charges, smashing through the husk of a city bus like it's tinfoil. Two of its tentacles sweep sideways and rip the facade off a 10-story building. Glass and steel rain down around him. He can't run. Can't even stand. And this thing is coming for him personally now. But he's still smiling. Because our boy has figured something out. He knows this gate beast is connected to him. To that fragment buried somewhere deep in his chest. It isn't just a monster. It's him. Or at least a piece of the gate that lives inside him now. And that means maybe he doesn't need to kill it. Maybe he needs to seal it. First, he needs to get back on his feet. He plants one hand on a chunk of fallen concrete and forces his legs to lock. His vision is doubling again. Bandages are soaked through and dripping red onto the asphalt. Behind him, Hyun-soo guns the Jeep's engine. The kid is pale and screaming something, but Seo-jin can't hear a word over the ringing in his ears. Hyun-soo swerves the Jeep between the monster and Seo-jin and lays on the horn. 200 decibels of pure, desperate noise. The monster hesitates, not out of fear, out of confusion. A tiny machine making noise at a thing that has eaten tanks. That split second is all Seo-jin gets. He doesn't waste it on running. He stumbles toward a collapsed construction crane lying across the plaza. 10 tons of bright yellow steel and twisted cable. He presses his palms against the crane's counterweight. and calls the heat. Nothing happens, not even a flicker. He pushes harder. His chest clamps down like a fist around his heart. Still nothing. The well is bone dry. He's drained every ember he had making that spear, and the spear is already gone, dissolved inside the monster's flesh. So now he's got 0. He slumps forward, and his forehead hits the cold metal. This is it. The biggest gate in history, and he can't craft a fork. He can barely breathe. He can barely see. Hyun-soo's jeep gets swatted sideways by a tentacle. It rolls and bounces and tumbles like a toy kicked by a giant. Somehow, Hyun-soo scrambles out of the wreckage before it explodes. He's limping, and one arm is hanging wrong, but he's alive. Seo-jin watches him crawl toward a storm drain, and that's when he makes the decision. There's one material he hasn't tried. One thing he's been carrying since the day he turned that first piece of junk into a dagger. His own life. He pulls the folding knife from his belt pouch. The same one he made from a rusted gear weeks ago. Now it's his only tool. He opens the blade and drags it across his left palm, where the metallic sheen is brightest. The cut is deep and immediately wells with blood. But the blood isn't just red. It's threaded with purple light. The same purple as the gate. He slaps his bleeding hand down onto a jagged slab of abyssium-infused debris. The stuff that crumbled from the gate's opening. It's everywhere in Hunter Square now. His blood seeps into the mineral, and it starts to glow. The fragment in his chest screams. Or maybe it sings. Either way, the whole world tilts, and his vision goes white. Heat erupts from his core like a sun going supernova. This isn't the old heat. This is something deeper. Something that burns not his stamina, but his essence. Every second he holds on, he feels a year erase from his body. But the stone is taking shape. Dark and smooth and shot through with veins of crimson and violet. It's the size of a fist, and it pulses in time with his heartbeat. Or maybe his heartbeat is pulsing in time with it. The monster feels it. All those eyes lock onto the glow in his hands. And for the first time since it fell out of the sky, it freezes. Not because it's hurt, because it's afraid. Our boy knows what he's holding now. This isn't a weapon, it's a key. A key forged from his own mortality, made to lock a door that was never supposed to open. He stands. How he does it is a mystery. His legs are barely solid at this point, and his skin is turning gray at the edges. But he stands. He pulls his arm back. The stone flares brighter. The air around him hums, and the pavement cracks. The gate in the sky thrashes like a living wound. Seo-jin doesn't throw it with his arm. He pushes it with everything he has left. The stone shoots upward in a streak of purple light, right through the monster's flailing tentacles, right past its hundreds of shrinking pupils, straight into the heart of the gate's membrane. For one heartbeat, nothing happens. Then the gate screams. Not the monster, the gate itself. A sound so loud and low that windows shatter for 3 blocks. The edges of the rift begin to constrict. The purple light dims, and the membrane contracts like a pupil squeezing shut. The monster is yanked backward. Its legs and tentacles scrape against the sky, as if the universe is dragging it home. Seo-jin watches it go. He's still standing. He's also starting to unravel. Literally. Flecks of light are peeling off his skin like dust from a dead fire. He looks down at his hands, and they're translucent now. The metallic sheen is spreading, consuming. His legs follow, his chest, his shoulders. But he's not scared. He's looking at the city, the fires, the people crawling out of rubble. And he's thinking that they're going to be okay. The last thing he sees is Baek Ji-woo. She's standing on a collapsed overpass 2 blocks away. Her sword is in one hand, and her eyes are fixed on him. She doesn't scream. She just watches. And maybe she nods. He can't be sure because the light takes his vision before he can confirm it. The gate snaps shut with a final pop. The monster is gone. And so is Kang Seo-jin. The plaza is empty except for a drifting shower of golden motes. They fall like warm snow on the wreckage. On Hyun-soo, who is crying with one arm broken. On Yoon, who arrived too late and is now on his knees. On Baek Ji-woo, who hasn't lowered her sword. The particles settle on the pavement and then begin to fade. All except one, a small shard of the ceiling stone, no bigger than a fingernail. It clinks onto the asphalt right where Seo-jin was standing. And it glows, faint and steady and purple, pulsing with a rhythm that isn't quite dead. A few seconds pass. Then a hand reaches down and picks it up. It's Baek Ji-woo. She turns the shard over in her fingers, and the light reflects in her eyes. Something stirs in the back of her mind, a whisper so quiet she isn't sure if it's real or memory. But it feels like a question. like the stone is waiting for an answer. She closes her fist around it. And somewhere far below the city, in a basement workshop that still smells of abyssium dust, a light flicks on. Counter artifact disk. It shouldn't still be working. But the cracked core pulses once, and a voice that sounds very young and very tired says one word. Twilight. Then silence. And Baek Ji-woo on the plaza shivers for reasons that have nothing to do with the cold.